Tkiyas after Gimmel Tammuz, I don't know how to relate to it. I don't know how to call it. I don't know what it is. To me, Tkiyas is the Rebbe. All of a sudden, what?
Right.
Pull your talus over your head and cry. What can I tell a young kid happens during Tkiyas? I can only tell them you should know the Rebbe is there with you and the Rebbe is blowing for you the Tkiyas. The fact that you don't see it is either because you don't need to see it or because you're connecting with it on a higher level. I don't know.
Welcome to Homesick for Lubavitch, a podcast where we explore Lubavitch identity in the year 2024. My name is Bosi Lgani, and I will be your host. Let's begin. Alrighty, I hope this works. Thank you, Rabbi Yosef Katzman, for coming on the podcast and your patience as I deal with this technical delay. We are here in Crown Heights a few days before Tishrei, and I wanted to thank you again for making the time before Yom Tov to sit down for the podcast. I think you reached out to me probably close to a year ago now. No, about probably a couple months.
Close to the beginning.
Yeah, a couple months after the podcast began, that you were listening to it, which at the time did catch me by surprise. And I thought that it'd be interesting, and we've had a intermittent conversation since, on and off, about some of the things that were discussed. And I thought it would be an interesting way to close out the year, to kind of bring it full circle, to have you on. So that said, I know that many people may think they know who you are already, but they probably don't. So why don't we begin, or they know where you come from, and they know your father and your mother, and the whole yichus. But why don't you tell them in your own words where you come from and your story?
First of all, I'd be remiss if I don't update some of the comments I said to you close to a year ago.
Okay.
I noticed that you yourself are very surprised where this podcast took you. I have to tell you, I'm not a fan because I enjoy the entertainment. I am a fan because I think you educated me. You literally, I don't think you have an idea. Let's go to your question. I am born and bred in Crown Heights. I'm one of these relics. Very few of us around. Most of us went on Shlichus, and I was from the few that stayed here. Okay, I worked in the Meisdes, and I had my Shlichus from the Rebbe. This is all true, but still I'm local. And I'm not experiencing on a day-to-day basis Shlichus world. And also, as you get older, you are not experiencing the excitement of Crown Heights, of 770, the way you used to. You just get older. That's just a fact of life. And going through 30 years after Gimmel Tammuz is no picnic. It's a rough ride. But as years go by, year by year, you see the next generation, you can almost say the next generation after that, growing up. You are blown away by what is going on, what you hear, what you see. You learn so much. It like reinforces everything that Rebbe taught us. We thought it was a pie in the sky, to use some vulgar language. It's nice in the books, it's spiritual, it's holy, but what has it got to do with real day-to-day life?
Right.
Now it's all unfolding. And you, I must say, helped me gave me a window by some of your guests. I mean, you've had a very broad spectrum of guests, from senior chassidim, from, you can call them from 2 generations ago,
Right.
till today's little young kids, and I am just blown away. The Rebbe is so powerful and so living and so leading us that's why I reached out to you in the beginning, and I'd be remiss if I don't thank you for it, because I don't think that way. My generation doesn't think that way.
What do you mean by that way?
Takes a lot of adjusting. Okay, I'll say something.
But what do you mean by that way?
I will give you a little explanation what I mean. I hope you're not going to feel offended. But some of your questions make me cringe. They really make me cringe. How can somebody ask this? How can somebody say this? When we grew up, everything was just taken for granted. You don't ask such questions. My father had an amazing expression. Whenever I think about it, it's like, wow.
Your father's name was?
My father was Rabbi Katzman. He was, in personality, he was a big mashpia, but in life, most of his life, he was a businessman. He was an Eved till his last day. I mean, that didn't change even in business. And Chassidische upbringing was like his thing. And he was very silent. And then with his silence, he was mashpia more than anybody could with words. And I was younger, and I was rebellious, and I was questioning, and I was challenging, whether it's the system or the establishment. I was that type of guy, and I used to ask questions. And whenever I would say it in front of my father, not only me, every one of us, all my siblings, his response was, "Und als du verstehst nicht, is was?" You know, you don't have to understand everything. And we actually lived like that. You don't understand. Es ist gar nicht geschehen. Nothing happened. Things are expected of you. You should do it, and you're fine. You don't question. What I hear by you, you ask questions that are taboo. But you know what? You are eliciting responses that if this question wouldn't be asked. I once heard from a wise man, he used to say, the dumbest question is the question never asked. If we were fine without questions, fine. That doesn't mean that it works for everybody. Right. And it doesn't. So now I'm listening. He's questioning what's going to be the response. And I can't start to tell you how much I learned from the different guests on every level, every age. It's just reinforced everything I think of the Rebbe, everything I believe in the Rebbe. It reinforces my identity as a Lubavitcher, as a Chassid of the Rebbe. It's like, what can I tell you? I can only say thank you.
Well, first of all, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. I'm not offended. Just to be clear, I'm not offended. Not because I'm trying to be a smart aleck with the questions or with my response now, but I don't believe that the questions are intended to be disrespectful, but I do understand why the questions would come as a surprise to many people or uncomfortable to many people, especially people, like you said, that are not used to asking or thinking this way. So, I'm comfortable with asking them for the most part, pretty much for all of it. If I wasn't comfortable with it, I probably wouldn't publish it. But, I understand at the same time that people might find them unusual or maybe even questionable, and that's okay. That's something I have to live with, and if people get upset or they tell me sometimes, it's okay.
I want to say,
Yeah.
I'm not thinking of them in a negative sense at all.
No, I know. But
I
but I'm not.
completely, but originally, it takes getting used to.
Just a year ago, I was sitting right here recording the intro to the podcast. And at the time, it was just an idea. Sitting here today thinking about where the podcast has gone, I'd be lying if I told you that I had any of that in mind when I began a year ago. The podcast has led me to travel across the country, out of the country, to meet so many fascinating people, most of whom I'd never heard of before, certainly not met before, and to spend hours with them hearing their absolutely fascinating stories and ideas and perspectives, and then of course to share it with thousands of people around the world. One of the most precious parts of working on this project has been the response that I've gotten from people around the world. The graciousness and kindness and positivity has been something that I never dreamt of. Over the past year, this podcast has been completely self-funded, which is something I have absolutely zero regrets about. It has been an absolute blast, a journey of a lifetime, an experience of a lifetime. And when I think about it, probably the most important work I've ever done. But as I look towards the coming year, or years of this project, God willing, I now invite you, the listeners of Homesick for Lubavitch, to take part in making this project more sustainable. So I've created a website, hflpodcast.com, where there will be a full archive and library of all the episodes of Homesick for Lubavitch. And there will also be a link there to support the podcast, either with a monthly contribution or a one-time contribution, either of which will help make this podcast something that will be permanent, something that will be sustainable, something that will grow, something that will continue to make all of us more proud and more hopeful and more grateful to be who we are. Why do you think? Because to me, it's not at all. Another reason why it's not offensive at all is because I'm quite convinced for a long time already that these questions were not asked in the past. So I understand that they're not something that people are used to, and to me the question is, why do you think people didn't ask questions? I mean, I understand the word to your father that it's okay not to understand. I think, if I had to think about it, I don't feel like I oppose that statement, or people that I know oppose that statement. It's not like people today are convinced that they're going to understand everything at the other side of these questions, or that not understanding everything is kilo a problem. We understand that life is big and complicated, and especially when you're talking about Yiddishkeit, Gettlichkeit, these kind of things, you're not going to get to the bottom of it. But at the same time, at least speaking for myself, just because I can't understand everything doesn't mean I should stop trying to understand as much as I can. And more importantly, I don't look for questions. I'm not looking to, here's another, where can I find another question? The questions that I ask.
How can you rock the boat?
Yeah, how can I rock the boat? How can I be provocative? Or, maybe I'm out of questions, so let me think for a few minutes. Do I have another question that I can just come up with? For the most part, the questions I arrive at are just organic. Either they're questions that are sitting with me in general, or in the course of a conversation, somebody says something and that question comes to my mind, right? So it's not that I am looking to ask questions for the sake of questions. I'm looking to not ignore the questions that come to me, which seems to be also quite novel. I mean, not that I'm unique, but like you said, the time is different. The people didn't used to tolerate this kind of questioning, or they saw it as like a problem. Why do you think that is?
I have a few answers.
Okay.
Number one, there is the established statement, I think, from the Radatz, who said, Gefällt dir je, gefällt dir nicht, azeh is der Inyan. This is a statement that the Rebbe repeated quite often. although in different contexts, but the statement still exists. Whether you like it or not, that's the way it is. Just follow along.
Okay.
Accept. Kabbalah Soul. That's something that some of the mashpim try to convey. Just accept. And I'll give you an example. I had two mashpim who would say left their mark on me. Not that I'm the biggest mushpa, but I had two mashpim, total opposites. I remember I was pretty young. I was probably 15. Started learning Chassidus, a little more serious, maybe 14. We're learning Kunter Samayim, and as you go along, he starts talking about the Midas and Ein Sof, and you go higher and higher. And he explains that Ein Sof starts at a certain level, higher than Bria, let's say. Higher than Bria, there's nothing to talk about. There it's Ein Sof. Up until Bria, the lower worlds, there are definitions, Esesphiras, and so on. It's still in my mind from then, many years ago. Then we proceed, we start talking about Atzilus. All of a sudden in Atzilus, wait a minute, there are again 10 spheres. I ran to my mashpiais and I asked them, what is this? How could there be 10 spheres in Atzilus? And I built up my question with all the excitement. He heard me out very nicely, very warmly. Then he responded, Wern weiter.
Wern weiter.
By me saying it, you probably can figure out this was Rapinyakorf. Wern weiter. Don't worry about it. Don't get stuck. Keep moving. Either he meant eventually you'll figure it out, or he meant don't start questioning and nitpicking. Okay, that was a lesson in Kabbalah Soul. And he left a very strong mark on me. I mean, opinion was something else. His Kabbalah Soul, you saw on him the Kabbalah Soul, just his presence influenced you. Then I had another mashpia, I think it was a year later. We were learning Derech Mitzasecha. And there again, there's a whole build-up in Sheresh Mitzvah Tefillah, or maybe it was Amonas Halakus, I don't remember. Also, this type of thing, as we are progressing, and things that, like, first you told me that this is only on lower levels. I don't remember the exact detail, but it was the same type of thing. I said, now I'm going to ask my other mashpia. I came over and he heard me out. His face started beaming. And he's listening. He says, Good gefragt. Go bring me this Sefer Mamorim. Go bring me that Sefer. He started showing me here and there. And he gave me what to do for the next few days to learn and to be able to digest and understand and dissect them. His response, what did that do to me? It gave me such a chayas in learning Chassidus. And I'm indebted to him till today. I'll say his name, Reb Shlomo Majeski, who in my opinion was a big loss for the boys when he switched to Machon Chana. It was a big loss for Lubavitch, I think, for the boys. His hashpah, he gave me such chayas in Chassidus. You can't imagine. For me, chazering and my Chassidus, first of all, learning inside, and then chazering Balpeh. Till today, I still chazer my mother Balpeh. I credit him for that. He gave me so I feel here, this one gave me Kabbalah say, don't be full of yourself, don't be. And the other one says, let me take you and build you.
Right.
And they were both right. They both had a message. Right. That's one answer, which I think is part of the education of Chassidus.
But it's not really an answer because, like you said, in your times, people didn't ask questions about Chassidus, yeah, but about these things, no.
This was so I want to say it's broader than that. it's broader than, which maybe my second part will also
Okay,
give some of the.
I'm here. Yeah.
The Rebbe himself demanded from us things beyond comprehension. I mean, I'm sure you heard of enough stories when the Rebbe asked people whether it was to go on Shlichus.
Right.
And there was a slight hesitation. You know the story of the Arizal, right? The Arizal told his Talmidim, let's go to Yerushalayim. And they were in Tzfas, and they said, okay, we'll just tell our wives or ask our wives. Arizal was upset. We blew it. Asking your wife, that's halacha. No, it's not like. When the Rebbe asked somebody to go on Shlichus, and whether he hesitated because he has to ask the wife, or the parents, the mother-in-law, the father-in-law, you blew it. The famous, beautiful, most beautiful story that illustrates what the Rebbe did appreciate, I think, in my opinion, what I would call the Rebbe's boys. The Rebbe's boys, sort of the first shluchim in a sense. In a sense, they were the first. They weren't Mamish the first, but they were. Gershon Mendel, Garelik, Nachman Sudak, and Label Raskin. I think they are symbolic because they went to all different places in the world and they were best of friends. The way they approached going to Shlichus was like, Garelik is begging the Rebbe, begging, please send me, please send me. And then there was the story that he was told he was locked up and he was working in yeshiva. In Newark, I think he was working.
Because of the podcast, we know that it was really Mrs. Garelik who was begging.
I'm fine with both.
I'm saying
I'm fine with both. That's even better.
A good order from the podcast.
But I think that Rabbi Chadakov told Gershon Mendel, you can't go anywhere. You know, you're employed and you ain't going anywhere.
Right.
What did he do?
He fired himself.
He got himself fired. In no time, he got himself fired. And that was the end of it. Label Raskin, very beautiful story that when rumor had it that he was asked to go to Shlichus to Morocco or Tunis, some elder chassid came to him and tried to set him straight. You're crazy. Where are you going? What's going to be with your chinuch? What's going to be with your chassidish environment? How are you going to live? Amongst whom are you going to live? What are you doing? And Label just looks at him and says, the Rebbe has been talking we should go on Shlichus for so many years. Finally, I have this chus that the Rebbe is giving me a Shlichus. And you're giving me this speech? So the elder chassid didn't want to leave go. And they got into a conversation, the way I heard it. They started strolling on Eastern Parkway. And he's trying to knock in sense to him. And Label is like, I don't get it. This is what the Rebbe wants. We got to do it. And what preceded that was Rabbi Chadakov asked him, do you want to go to Tunis or to Morocco? To him, it's like you're asking him, should he go to Jupiter or Pluto?
Right.
What's the difference? He says, what's the difference to me? Rabbi Chadakov says, okay, you know what? Talk to your wife. When you'll make a decision, you'll come. And he says, whatever the Rebbe wants, that's where I'm going. So this was like, it was still open. And they're having this conversation, and they're coming back towards 770. I don't know exactly what it looked like. But then they noticed at the entrance to 770, somebody overtook them and quickly walked in 770. They raised their eyes, and he noticed it was the Rebbe. The Rebbe came from behind them and walked into 770. A short while later, Rabbi Chadakov calls him in and he says, the Rebbe chose Morocco for you. So the way he interpreted it, or maybe he had more proof for it, that the Rebbe was walking behind. He heard him speak. He heard how he spoke. So even though Rabbi Chadakov told him, you're going to have to pick your place, but the Rebbe heard that he's really devoted, so the Rebbe picked a place for him. What's my point? the Rebbe did demand total bittul, total giving yourself away. And this is not only because you have to listen to the Rebbe like that. Your whole approach to life has to be straight out Kabbalah soul. You have to accept and don't ask too many questions. So this is a general approach in life, because that's the only way. If you're going to allow yourself to be distracted, who knows where you're going to end up? That's on a spiritual level. On a physical level, I think we are the next generation from what we would call the silent generation. Technically Holocaust survivors, Stalin survivors.
Right.
My father grew up in Russia. He was trained to keep his mouth shut.
Right.
You couldn't open. So if you want to give a bit of a negative spin, he didn't know how to communicate because nobody trained him how to communicate. On a positive note, how did they grow up? I asked this question, and this is a realization I only came to a few years ago. As that generation passed, my father's group, they grew up, their yeshiva education was in Samarkand. They came out in their middle teens, 17, 18 years old. And then they were in Brinois for a few years until they came to America. It's a group, what can I tell you? Ge'onim Talmidei Chachomim, which is unbelievable. If they would be in another place in the Misnagdish world, they would have been Gdei Yisrael, the biggest Rosh Yeshivas. My father was a Rosh Yeshiva for quite a few years in Newark. Bullshit. At Talmud Chochem, I remember we were sitting Shiva and people walked in, they looked at my father's Shas. Their eyes popped. I remember I used to learn, he used to sit nights and learn with Chavrusas. He went through Kotchim and learning was his thing. Where and how did they learn in Samarkand? There was no food. There was no clothing. There was no sforim. You tell me, how did they grow up like that? My only answer is that silent Kabbalah soul. Instead of rebelling, why do I have to put up with this? And there were like that. Most of those who were a little from that era that went off a little were the ones, I wouldn't say they went off, but were the ones who were sent to the army. But those who didn't go to the army, there wasn't that rebellious mood. There was a perfect Kabbalah soul mood. So they went and they continued to impart this on us. When we went to Cheder, our first teachers were like that. I mean, we had a mix of American and Russian teachers, but the Russian teachers were fire.
Right.
So I think that's where it comes from. So asking questions is just not part of the repertoire. It's accept, be accepting, and things will work out. And you didn't even care, will it work out or not? That's another part.
Right.
Tachlis was like not a thing.
I mean, so from what I'm understanding from you is there's basically two ideas. One is a more like religious idea of Kabbalah soil that dominates over your understanding. Like if the question is following versus understanding, following precedes. Following comes first. And the other one is a more historical idea, which is the residue or debris of communism that was left in the community, and Stalinism and whatever. I mean, I think I don't disagree with either of those ideas. It's definitely part of the reason. The question is, from your vantage point, given that that's how you grew up, and that's how things were, and that's how things that was considered the good way of living, let's say. What makes you? Did you think that asking questions is a good thing, or that other people ask questions is a good thing? Do you think now that it's a good thing? I mean, you've explained why people didn't ask questions, and you've noticed that people today are asking questions. Is that a good development or a bad development, in your opinion?
That's exactly why I'm thanking you.
Right.
I believe, first of all, some changes were already instituted by the Rebbe. Whether you want to call it as part of Shlichus, where you meet people from the outside, and all of a sudden you're confronting questions that you never thought about, you never had to think about.
Right.
You need answers. But the Rebbe also emphasized the Avedas Hamato, that we have to be permeated. Kabbalah's O is not enough. If anything, in many Maimorim, I believe even the last Maimor, even Atat Tzava, you have a hint of that. The Rebbe wants this Kabbalah soul to be permeated also, as the Lashon is, Koiches Apnimim, also with your intellect, also with your emotions. So yeah, there is this Kabbalah soul hanging over you, but you have to have it in your mind. That's why I think the Rebbe published all the Chassidus. When I was a young bocher, there was no Chassidus published. We learned most of everything that we had from manuscripts, or whatever you call it, the typed mimeograph. And there wasn't much. I mean, I can say since I got married,
Right.
another 500 Chassidus Forum were published. Until then, there were 50, 60 Forum, everything together, including Kuntresim. We didn't, and the Rebbe's Torah, we didn't have in writing. It was so little available.
Right.
And the Rebbe published it all. And what the Rebbe taught us? Ways of thinking. The first Krachim Lekutei Sichos.
I don't want to cut you off, but I am going to cut you off. You made a very, very interesting point there about the publishing of all the Chassidus. You brought that up as a kind of connection, or as a kind of proof almost, towards thinking for yourself and asking questions. It's interesting that I think there are those, and there is a way to interpret that in the exact opposite way, which is why I'm pointing it out. So much Chassidus means that there's no questions anymore, right? All the questions have been answered, and there's such a yam of Chassidus that to swim across it is enough of an undertaking that there's no time for questions. You could say even more, maybe a little bit more cynically, that when there's so much, when you're drinking from a fire hose, basically, right? There's so much coming at you, it's impossible almost to think for yourself. So it's interesting that you're seeing that as a invitation almost to think and to ask questions. And it makes sense. Like, why would you publish Chassidus? I wasn't throwing spaghetti at the wall. I mean, of course, maybe some people think that, but I wouldn't think there's just throwing spaghetti at the wall and like seeing what sticks. It's more, here I am not safeguarding it anymore. I'm not like, what's it called, gatekeeping it from you anymore. Here it is. There's nothing to hide. It's for you to figure out, right? I'm entrusting it. I'm entrusting you with this Chassidus. But I think it's just interesting that you make that kind of observation, because I know that I've heard or I've seen it be interpreted the opposite way of.
Listen, I feel that way. There's a lot more to my thinking, how I interpret this.
Right.
But I'm relating now to this, asking the Rebbe, when you say the answers are there, I don't know them.
Right.
So I have to learn.
Right.
And if I'm not going to learn, I'm not going to know. So
right,
you know what?
But you're not learning it just to find answers.
So
That's one guy.
May I take a personal experience that I had through learning Chassidus?
Yeah, it's an open invitation. You can say whatever you want.
A painful topic.
Yeah, no, just saying, you can say whatever you want. You don't need to ask permission.
We had a painful topic.
Okay.
It's called Gimmel Tammuz. Terrible experience. I grew up, I knew nothing other than the Rebbe.
Right.
Just to give in a little emotion. I was married. I had, God bless him already, I had 8 children already. And not that we thought anything, but, we were sure we got married with the Rebbe on our side, and the Rebbe is leading us, and the Rebbe will take care of us, especially since the Rebbe started Tzivus Hashem. So he's taking care of everything. And then all of a sudden, Gimmel Tammuz, you feel cheated. Like, this is not what I signed up for. How will I continue? I was struggling. Many years. I remember one of the consoling statements I spoke to friends was, now, it can't be. If the Rebbe cared for some girl in Africa, or some man in some hick town in Holland, or these various, or in Australia, to do one mitzvah, the Rebbe is all of a sudden going to abandon us. It's not possible. So he's for sure. I mean, that was just, it was nice to say, but you didn't feel it. I'm talking shortly after Gimmel Tammuz. And I was struggling. A lot of upbringing, a lot of crying. Until it came Tovshin Samach Vov. That's 12 years after Gimmel Tammuz. It was 100 years since the Samach Vov. I'll never forget this. I was sitting Chayelul by a Simcha. And I told someone, it would be nice to sit down and learn the Samach Vov cover to cover. In yeshiva, you just learn pretty much the first Hemshech, and then a Chedesh, and then a Miknerab, and pretty much you get ideas, but there's a question in the beginning of Samach Vov, you don't get that answer.
Yeah.
I said, okay, I got to start cover to cover.
Right.
The next day, I get a call from one of the people at the table. When are we starting? I put my foot in my mouth. So you know what? I started learning Samach Vov. And even though many people are not going to like what I'm going to say, I know for a fact Rabbi Yael was very not happy with this type of thinking. Other Chassidim, Rabbi Yisrael Friedman I spoke to, did accept it from me. I discussed it with many Chassidim.
Rabbi Yael was not happy with
this.
Oh,
I'll tell you what he was not happy about.
Oh, you spoke to him about it?
I not myself. I directly didn't, but I already heard from others. And one of my chavrusas spoke to him about it. And when I finished Samach Vov, I says, this is my answer to Gimmel Tammuz. What? I was Samach Vov, and this is when it hit me. The end of Samach Vov, which gives you the closing for the question why the Eibishter created the world and what is accomplished. Like, what's the Chiddush? The big question. What's the Chiddush? Towards the end of Samach Vov, the Rebbe Rashab explains it. The Chiddush, that there's a new Gilui. The world starts, or creation starts, or even the Neshamas Yisrael start, even if it's an Atzmus, but there is still what you call a removed level. That's called Helamo Atzmi. Right. Helamo Atzmi, we want to achieve Gilui Helamo Atzmi. Now, the translation of these 3 words is the biggest oxymoron, biggest contradiction. Gilui, revelation, Helem of a concealment, Ha'atzmi of an essence. Revelation is not concealment.
Right.
And Atzmi, essence, is neither.
Right.
So we're going to reach, we come from there, and we want to reach that level, and then when Mashiach will come, we're going to go even higher than that. Yeah. And that kind of gave me, it settled me. Why did it settle me? Whatever we learn in Chassidus is it's not theory. Right. It's real life. What happened here? There's a concealment. Terrible concealment. We started off, it's a darkness. It's a darkness. We had it so good. All of a sudden it's dark. With time, now I have to put together the life's experience together with what I'm learning. With time, we notice, wait a minute, the Rebbe didn't disappear. The Rebbe is still here. He's working in wondrous ways. He's leading us. A new generation is growing up. Mekushorim, their whole life is Rebbe. They're still willing to give their lives away for the Rebbe. What do you mean still? A lot more than ever before. Shlichus quadrupled since Gimmel Tammuz. So you look at that, and then you look at this. There's a darkness. Stop a minute. Samachvov is explaining to you there's a concealment. There's a helem atzmi. There is an essential concealment. In other words, the essence is concealed, but it's functioning. That's how the world is created. That's where neshamas come from. How does that translate? That translates in my life, before I had the Rebbe in Revelation. Gilu. I saw the Rebbe every day. And it was amazing. My whole life. Now, there's a concealment. But he's functioning through the concealment. What does that mean? Now, I'm going to say something very bold. When I look at the face of a bocher, this is what the Rebbe looks like. Stop looking only at the pictures. Look at the real life Rebbe is when I walk into 770 and I see a packed 770 of bocherim sitting and learning. That's Rebbe. When I walk into a seminary or high school and I sit down with girls and I fabring with them, my eyes pop out. Such is kashrus. Here, the Rebbe is shining. Shining? It's concealed. You don't see him. But he's there and he's functioning, fully functional. This Samachvov helped me. It literally, honestly, it calmed me in a certain sense. Rabbi Yale didn't like that. Don't look for explanations for Gimmel Tammuz. Leave it. We don't really know. And I'm not saying I know. I'm just saying that to me, that gave me a certain settlement. This was how I saw it. And that's why when I look at today's generation who are asking those questions, I think I told you that when I listened to some of your podcasts with some of the younger guys, I felt like a fly in the wall in a dormitory room.
Yeah.
I love it. I don't know what bocherim talk about in dormitory.
Neither do I.
But I heard it. This is what they ask those questions. Right. They discuss it amongst them. And look what the end product is. The end product is amazing.
Okay, 1 second though. To push back a little bit, what about when you see, you talked about the nice things that you see. The Bacher in 770, the girl in the high school. What about when you see the yeshiva of the Bachrim who fell out of the main yeshiva system, or the Bacher who fell out of that also and is now walking the streets and doesn't look the part, let's say, or the girl who has dropped observance of Yiddishkeit. Like what do you see then? Is that also the Rebbe in your mind?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not disconnected from that either.
Right.
In my function that I've been positioned in.
Nobody is today.
I fabring with elite,
right,
or what you would call top of the line,
right,
quality.
Right.
And I fabring those who you would call are at the bottom of the pit.
Right.
All kinds. I mean, just to illustrate, I'm not going to identify, but certain places where I fabring. It's a Shabbos afternoon, and you sit in your fabring, and guys come with their motorcycles, walking to shul. Some of them won't even have the decency of putting on a yarmulke.
Right, they're angry.
But sit down, eat your chont, and then you sit and you talk to them. And all of a sudden, one of them says, let's sing L'Chatchila River. I love the Rebbe Marash. And I'm like, that's not what I expected. And I know quite a few. Let me give you another illustration. I'll give you a few, maybe. You'll see how much time allows. One of these boys that of a Shabbos afternoon that I just described to you. I go to the oil pretty much every Sunday. So summer Sundays, which are long days, to me, that's my country. My family never went to the country. I go to the quiet. Today, they're a lot busier, but there were years where it was very quiet. And you can sit there for 3-4 hours and just peace of mind, and you're a special place and secluded from the world. I'm sitting there, and I see two guys from this element, so to speak, walk in, and you can see one of them is dragging the other. Like, the second guy is not so willing to go, not a willing accomplice, but this guy is physically dragging him. Right. They walked in, there were no yarmulkes on their head. They went over to the box, put on yarmulkes, and then one of them says to the other, we can't go in without putting on film. They went to the desk, put on film. They open a siddur, they start reading Shema. They finish Shema, they continue V'yatziv, they daven Shemoneh Esrei, they finish Shemoneh Esrei, they already finished all the way. They took out a Tillim, they said Tillim. It wasn't like they planned on it, but once you do it, just keep going. They finish davening, they take off the film. Then the other guy says, we can't go in without learning a sikha first. He comes over to me, he knows me. He says, you have any sikhas you recommend? So whatever I recommended, I don't remember where it was, Pashas Kairach, or whatever it was, he took a sikha, one of the first chalokim, Beis or Dalet, and they found 2 chalokim. They went into the second tent and they sat down to learn. I, in the meantime, had gone into the oil, and I came out. About an hour and a half after they started learning, they were still sitting and learning. B'tazah koch. Like he was back in yeshiva. First of all, what schlepped him to the oil to begin with? The way we describe the appearance, we think, come on, he has no connection. And everything else about it didn't look right. One of them didn't even want to come. The whole situation is like so confusing. And what happens? When the moment comes, all of a sudden, what we heard from the Rebbe so many times, al tabit el mareu, don't look at his looks. Don't look at his appearance. There is something in there. You see, it inflamed. You look, a very recent experience, I was in a house for a kiddush.
Right.
And the kiddush went on late into the afternoon. And some bocher walked in. He came late. He walked in, made kiddush, started eating. But before he even sat down to eat, and I'm going to tell you, his appearance is, again, not spitz chabad. It didn't look like he came from 5 hours davening. He started looking for a chelik Likutei Sichos. He takes out Likutei Sichos and he invites somebody, please, let's sit down and learn. And as they're eating, or instead of eating, such a koch.
Yeah, but
that's one point.
Right.
But another point, which is a little more direct to your question.
Right. Because you're romanticizing it a little bit.
I am telling you my experience.
No, I'm not.
I'm describing to you my oxygen.
No. I am not. I am not disputing whether or not it happened. I believe that it happened. You're romanticizing it in the sense that if you're talking about things moments where people who are off the beaten path, have that kind of moment of reconnection. But, of
I
course.
know exactly what your question is.
Okay.
And so far, I did not address it.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay,
I'll be
fair.
I did not address it.
Okay.
And now I'll go back to
Okay.
direct answer to you is,
Yes.
that's normal.
What's
We
wrong?
all should have been like that. We
Right.
should have all dropped out. There is nothing, let's be honest to ourselves and to everyone. There is nobody who can take credit for keeping those in line. To fall out.
Why?
Because, let's use the term conventional wisdom. What did everybody write, Gimmel Tammuz? What were the headlines in every newspaper? From left and right and the center, and how many Chassidim says that's the end of Lubavitch? Why did they say that?
Oh, 1 second. The end of Lubavitch means everybody's going to be fry?
There's nothing to
No.
hold them. The degree of fry doesn't matter. If you're a Lubavitcher,
Right.
the square, the
Right.
cookie cutter, Shlichus, learning Chassidus, being ultra
Right.
ready for yourself. The minute 1% is missing, there's no difference between 1% and 100%.
No, but once
Why are you?
This needs to be interrogated a little bit, if you don't mind. I've heard this kind of expression before, but I'm trying to understand why. I understand that there was a massive shock by Gimmel Tammuz, and I understand that people, for whatever reason, people didn't see it coming, and some people or many people, depending on how honest they were, felt betrayed. But why does that lead to dropping everything? I mean, at the end of it, did Chassidim not believe in God? Like, not believe in Torah? Like, was it just Rebbe or bust?
Okay, so first of all,
Maybe I didn't understand what you're saying.
No. I didn't explain
Okay.
enough. That's for
Okay.
sure.
Okay. This week's episode is brought to you by This World is a Garden, a new film and concert production by Yuvla Media. Based on the Rebbe's first talk, Bosi Lgani, the production tells the story of the Chabad vision lasting over 300 years, to see this world as God sees it, as His garden. Combining beautiful cinematography with a live performance of a string quartet, This World is a Garden is a meditation on hope and holding on to a vision as time passes by. This production is now available to be shown at your Chabad house and community. Share the message and vision of Bosi Lgani with your community in a way you never have before. For more information, please visit thisworldisagarden.com.
There's a reason why the Baal Shem Tov came to this world.
Right.
There's a reason the Alter Rebbe came into this world.
Yeah.
They introduced a certain way of life based on the physical presence of a Rebbe. The physical presence of a Rebbe helps you, together with learning Chassidus, it helps you in today's world. The Baal Shem Tov came into a world, it says his name, Yisrael, to revive the Jewish people. The Jewish people were fachalished. Listen, there's so much we had to put up with. And that should have been the end of it. That's the normal course of nature. Somehow we always survived. And a very strong part of our survival as Jews and from Jews is always the Rebbe. The Rebbe is a very central part of it. Whether it is because, by living example, whether it is because of the spiritual powers that he infuses us with. But this is what we're about.
But in Tafshin Yud, for example, in Tafshin Yud, Yud Tafshin Yud, when people spoke to the Rebbe about, or were petitioning the Rebbe to us, the Ramash at the time, to become Rebbe, and he was saying no, was the feeling that if he doesn't accept, we're all going to fry out? Or, for example, in the time of Churban Lubavitch, after the Marash with the Rashab and the Razah, and there wasn't officially a Rebbe for 10 years, which was described by the Fidik as Churban Lubavitch, did they at the time say that they were going to fry out? They left Lubavitch. Lubavitch became weak, but that everybody that left fried out was that,
So first of all,
or they just became other kinds of
we're going back to the beginning.
Right.
People didn't think that much, didn't question that much.
Okay.
So to say that it was on the agenda of discussion, never heard, and I don't think it was. I don't know. But to say that it wasn't, of course it was. There was a weakening, and this weakening manifests itself in all kinds of ways.
The reason I think I want to explain why I'm asking it. 'Cause I'm not just asking it to, to kind of catch.
No, you're asking a very good question.
No, I'm not even just asking it to like find out what people. We never really know what's going on in people's minds. It's more that I feel once you accept the premise that after Gimmel Tammuz happened, the baseline is that everyone should basically lose grip of their Yiddishkeit. That's the baseline, and because the newspaper said that Lubavitch is over, or whatever, and then whatever happens above that is a pella. But it's all because you accept as a baseline that this what was expected was that Lubavitch should fall apart, people should lose a grip of their Yiddishkeit, and so on. Where you have the baseline changes everything, right? Because now you are looking at everything compared to what you expected to happen based on the baseline. So you expected it to happen this way, and now that it didn't happen this way, we think it's amazing. But if we thought the baseline wasn't there and the baseline was higher, then the fact that we didn't fall apart wouldn't be amazing, right? The baseline is very important.
There's partial truth to what you're saying. That is,
okay.
I'll accept. But it's not that I have a baseline down at the floor and anything higher is just high.
Right.
The idea is the Rebbe, everything centered around the Rebbe.
Mm-hmm.
Everything of yours. It's like amazing. We always talk about the Rebbe, about Shlichus and about Hafotze, Maisehu, Iker, all these wonderful things. You look at the Rebbe's Sichas, Maimorim. I mean, the Rebbe is demanding Kabbalah's all, and the Rebbe is demanding Avavira, and the Rebbe is demanding everything the Alter Rebbe demands, even stronger. Except, you can almost say that the Rebbe possibly introduced some shortcuts. If by the Alter Rebbe, you had to really toil before you went into Yechidus. You had to spend 3 years, and only then are you ready for Yechidus and things like that. By the Rebbe, he opened us up in a way. This is something that is a gift. This is not a normal thing by Jews to have the Etzem HaNeshama come out. When I say Etzem HaNeshama, you look how Chassidim are living today. It's not because of their Avodah, but it's because there's something in them, that there's a fire that burns. Mm-hmm. It manifests itself in so many ways. I mean, I can't start. The list is so long, whether it is young kids going out on Shlichus with absolute Mesiras Nefesh, or Bochrim learning Chassidus, I mean, like the best maskilim of once upon a time, or Yerushalayim that I see. No, this is not. This comes from somewhere. Where does it come from? In the olden days, it didn't exist. It was a lot more Chetzenizdik, and maybe because it was a closed world, you were able to contain it. But how much? How much already? I mean, most Jews lived in farms and in little villages, and they were disconnected. It was an elite group of Talmidei Chachomim. Today, the amount of Talmidei Chachomim, the amount of Torah, the amount of yeshivas, the amount of Talmidim that's going, it's unprecedented in history. There's something that changed. Something happened that did not happen with the giants, with Rishonim, Achronim. It didn't happen. Historically. Today, it's happening because there are certain changes.
What's happening?
The growth of Yiddishkeit. the growth of the revelation of Yiddishkeit, the desire for Yiddishkeit, whether it is from Jews, they like to describe certain communities. They used to be what today is called modern Orthodox, and they're losing it because their children are all yeshiva boys. They became, code word, they became Haredi. Chassidim of old, and this is a question that I've heard you ask several times, when Chassidim came out of Russia, didn't they feel, okay, maybe it's time to relax? Meaning, you didn't mean relax in Yiddishkeit, but relax in, why go out and have Mesiras Nefesh on Shlichus when you can sit in Crown Heights and enjoy the local kosher stores and the 100 shuls that you have here and sit and learn Chassidus all day? Why do you have to give yourself away to care for another Jew? And the answer is because times have changed. Our neshama is shining. Not only the Balchuvas that want to come to Yiddishkeit, and especially this year after what happened in Etzron, there was such an arousal, such an awakening by Jews to get closer to Yiddishkeit. There's something happening. It's playing out. What we learn in the books is really playing out. So there is the normal course of things that all of this shouldn't happen. By us Chassidim, it centers around the Rebbe. When we don't have that presence of the Rebbe, it's lost. So the natural course of events should be, what's forcing me? In my times, you knew I'm going to have to go by the Rebbe by Keishel Bracha. I can't just come naked. I have to have something.
Right.
It kept me on my toes. I'm going to see the Rebbe by Mincha Ma'ariv. The Rebbe used to come in. We all know that. By Mincha Ma'ariv, the Rebbe used to scan the crowd, or by Kriyas HaTorah, you would see who's here, who's not here. This kept you on your toes. The times of Yechidus, you knew you had to go into Yechidus. These were things that...
When you were a Bachar, there was still Yechidus?
Yes, I still chapped around a few Yechidus. So, this...
What was it like when it switched from yes to no? Like, how old were you when it stopped?
18.
So from Bar Mitzvah to 18, you had every year, do you remember this?
I had Yechidus.
What was it like when it stopped? Was it abrupt?
So the Rebbe, I'm allowed to use this word,
on this
he
podcast,
was brilliant. Yeah, it was brilliant. When the Rebbe stopped Yechidus, he also, and we know that part of the reason was that it was not effective and we were not utilizing Yechidus
when
for
did
the
it stop?
proper reading.
Lamed Ches, right?
Lamed Hey.
Before the heart attack.
Before the heart attack.
Okay. How did it stop? One day there was an announcement.
Yes, the Rebbe announced that there will be no Yechidus.
The Rebbe announced it?
Yes.
At Upbringing?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
And he said what?
Explained.
He said it's not.
He said it's not having the proper effect. The whole idea, and I don't remember if it was private conversations with Amhola or Maskirim.
And it took all of you by surprise at Upbringing? Or people saw it coming? Do you remember what the feeling was?
Say that you saw it coming, you never saw anything coming.
Right.
But you did sense the Rebbe's lack of appreciation. Bochum coming in, I think the Rebbe used the expression, a Bocher comes in for Yechidus to ask for a bracha. That's what he has to come in for Yechidus. I have Yechidus. The Rebbe said, I instituted Yechidus because something, the Rebbe said, it was something that didn't exist in the past.
What, going in for the Rebbe for Yechidus?
For Bochum to go into Yechidus.
Didn't exist in the Rashab?
That's what the Rebbe said. I mean, maybe there were exceptions, but...
as a yearly thing.
I saw a letter, a very sharp letter from the Frierdiker Rebbe to the Mashpia in Varsha, who was pleading with the Frierdiker Rebbe to allow the Bochum into Yechidus, and he wrote the Rebbe, the Bochum are very upset and they're very hurt. And the Frierdiker Rebbe responded. He said very clear. He said the Yechidus is not a visit.
Right.
And the Rebbe describes what Yechidus is. And it doesn't exist. You just want to go in because you want to go in. So the Rebbe says, and the Frierdiker Rebbe did not change his mind. He stood his ground. He said, tell the Bochum to sit and learn Chassidus and stop hallucinating. And get to work. And everything will be fine. You don't need Yechidus. The Rebbe said, you're not utilizing the Yechidus. The Rebbe said, I introduced something. I thought a Bochum will come in and he'll open himself up to me. And I'll be able to give him guidance.
Why should those Bachrim, I'm sure there were Bachrim that were utilizing it, why should they suffer? They didn't explain.
I can't answer that. The Rebbe even was upset. At one point, the Rebbe instituted that in the last few years, which you can say was an indicator. The Rebbe said, when a Bocher comes in Yechidus, you should bring a letter from the Anhola. So the Anhola, and he would read first the letter from the Anhola, which is supposed to be a write-up about the Bocher.
Like a report card.
And the Rebbe said, this way I will know what to talk to him about. And the Rebbe was upset because they used to give a rosy picture. You know, every Bocher is fine, every Bocher is nice. Why say anything bad? And the Rebbe said, so what's the point? The Rebbe was upset.
So what was the feeling then when you...
Listen, it was a letdown.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, what the Rebbe said, you can have Yechidus every time you're a upbringing.
And you guys bought that? At the
Whether
time?
you bought it or not, when you needed it, you saw it was there.
Yeah, but at the time, you were
A
used
Bocher, this is...
I'm going to accept...
There
I'm going to
are
believe what you tell me.
dozens of Bochrim that I heard of from my generation.
Right.
I came to the Fabrengen, and all of a sudden the Rebbe addressed my direct issue.
You say there, but we can acknowledge, but that's in your head. That's not the same as walking into...
So the Rebbe said, this is it.
That's how you felt?
Yeah. When it happened,
You felt
it.
You felt no missing of a Yechidus.
It's very hard to say missing. It's like I'm going to say today, I don't feel the Rebbe missing. It's ridiculous.
So you did feel missing.
Of course I felt missing, but the Rebbe always found ways how to compensate.
No, I mean,
the Rebbe started coming out more often to the public.
There was no sense. If only I could have been a bacher 10 years earlier in the Chafs, for example. Was there that kind of sentiment?
You always have this type of feeling when you look back. There's nothing to talk about. You can't deny that there is such a feeling. But on the other hand, let's take Tovshin Lamed Ches, yeah? All of a sudden, for a month, we didn't see the Rebbe.
Right.
You know what that was? I would say, in my prime Bocherish Yon, it was so difficult. I have no words. It's very painful. And what's going to be...
You also didn't know it's going to be just a month.
I'm just saying.
Right.
What's going to be now?
Right.
The same way that Rebbe disappeared for a month. Who knows how long that's going to... We didn't know it was for a month. What did the Rebbe do afterwards?
How bad did it get in terms of what you thought was going to be? Like how dark did it get?
What can I say? You just shut off a switch. The light went off.
No, but how dark did it get? Like, was there a concern that the Rebbe's life was at stake here?
So I'm gonna put it this way. You didn't want to think that the Rebbe's life was at stake.
Right.
It was just not part of the thinking. I, as an individual, as a private citizen, happened to be in a household where quite a few of the doctors who were present came for the Yom Tov. I'm talking right away in the first days. And what you heard from them was not very exciting.
No.
I was present in 770, about 5 o'clock in the morning, when they asked us to go run and wake up all the Rabbonim to come together and paskin that the Rebbe must go to the hospital. That was not an encouraging moment.
One second, I never heard this before. Because the Rebbe was... The story that I do know is that the Rebbe, and with the support of the Rebbitzin, said that they're not going to the hospital. Right. And at least until Dr. Weiss from Chicago came, they brought in a bunch of doctors to see the Rebbe. And some
of which left.
All of them which left. I heard this directly from Rabbi Krinsky. every doctor that came said they cannot take a chayas of treating him in 770.
Correct.
And that's when Rabbi Krinsky called. And the Rebbe asked Rabbi Krinsky if he could think of someone, because she insisted that if the Rebbe decided not to go to the hospital, he's not going to the hospital. And when the Rebbe asked Rabbi Krinsky, he remembered of Dr. Weiss in Chicago, who flew in on Yom Tov.
Right.
So that part of the story I know, and I heard from him.
But there was a part.
So in the between,
early morning.
Because this is on Yom Tov still.
Before Dr. Weiss came.
Right. In between. So there
Shmini Atzeres morning.
So who
apparently,
came right.
Towards the end of the night, the Rebbe had another heart attack, which they had on the monitors.
Sure.
They already had monitors.
Right. Which is quite common for their test.
There was another, and that one sounded or looked
worse.
Even more severe.
Really?
Yes. And they were very frightened. And
who's they at this point? The Maskiris, the
Rebbe? I don't know. I was outside.
Maybe a private doctor.
I was never inside. No, there were a few Jungelite. There were a few Lubavitch Chassidim.
Dr. Seligson.
I mean Seligson also, but there were others. I forget the names. There was somebody from Cleveland and somebody from Florida. Could be Dr. Wunsch from Florida. Somebody from Cleveland. I forget his name.
They punked happened to be a for Yom Tov.
They came for Yom Tov, like Chassidim.
Right.
And there was maybe one more.
Right, so there were some medical people, but not the experts needed.
Maybe Levi Lev.
Mm-hmm.
There were some doctors, and they were frightened. They freaked out, and they thought, the decision earlier was not to go to the hospital, but maybe now.
And so they thought that if they bring Rabbanim,
yes, and
Rebbe will listen. Rebbe will listen.
Yeah. And the Rebbe actually gave out a message, please don't come to give me any psak. So, because I won't listen or something like that. So I shouldn't have to not listen or something like that. Or I shouldn't have to listen. Something to that effect.
What? Yeah. I mean, is there ever been an explanation of why the Rebbe refused to go to the hospital?
Explanation. There again, you're coming to one of those questions we never ask. But you want my guess?
It's the obvious question.
You want my guess?
Yeah.
It would have devastated Chassidim. The Rebbe would not.
Even if it meant that he would be more.
We don't know. Right. From the inside information, we have snippets here and there that the Rebbe at one point later in the day. Asked Rabbi Groner or something to the effect, what did you think was going to happen? Like, were you afraid?
All right.
Something to that effect. I don't remember.
With the mashmos being that
this is life-threatening.
That the Rebbe acknowledged.
The Rebbe acknowledged that it could have been life-threatening. Something to that effect. I think I heard it once from Rabbi.
So at the time, what was the sense of Bachrim? Was it
So
was it similar? Was it similar to what happened by Chav Zayin Adar, for example?
The Rebbe kept us on our toes. What does it mean he kept us on our toes? 2 hours after it happened, the Rebbe sends out a message to everyone to go eat Sudas Yom Tov at home.
Right. Okay. Everybody's congregated outside 770.
This is what the Rebbe has on his mind now.
Everybody's outside 770.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Make an announcement. The Rebbe said everybody should go.
Right.
The next morning or during the day, this is something I was directly involved. I happened to be at that time the Memuna of the Ta'alucha. Mm-hmm. And I worked very hard that year to find more shuls, and I actually called Rabbonim and prepared. They should expect us. And suddenly, who wants to leave 770?
Right.
And I'm running around. I don't know what to do. All of a sudden, I think it was Berel Yunik, came out, and he said that Rebbe asked to announce that everybody should go to Tahalucha as normal.
Right.
Mit simcha. And the Rebbe saved my day. That was my personal experience.
Yeah, but you're talking about the day of. I'm talking about a week or two later when you don't know what's
going
on.
A week or two later, because the impressions of the first day, that kind of took off the pressure. Uh-huh. I didn't come back from Hakofes till as late as I can.
Why?
I couldn't face. What am I going to see in 770? Then you come to Sunday, you see it's a packed shul, mifabrengt. The Rebbe sent out mashke, and the Rebbe said, "Hakofes, we should all realize that whoever is supposed to sit on the benkel, he said you should set up the shul normal, and you should envision that whoever is supposed to sit on the benkel is there."
That's what he said.
Yes, he kept sending messages.
Right, and what was
So that was like,
what was a kafis like?
that was the real. They have this line, "Rogdimu bochim." That was the absolute Rogdimu bochim. There were tears, rivers of tears streaming, and everybody was dancing. It was a sight. It was a sight. It was an experience. It was crazy. And then the Rebbe, just every day he did things to send messages. The whole thing that the Rebbe sent out a message about the tzimtzum b'shvil hagilu, about the needle, whether it's the vacuum or it's the pressure.
That was at Matzah Yom Tov.
No.
But he gave us Sikha Matzah Yom Tov.
Matzah Yom Tov, he gave a sich himself. But the night before, the night between Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah, the Rebbe sent out a message with Rabbi Groner that he should pass it on to Rabbi Yoel, and Rabbi Yoel will develop it according to his ability. So the Rebbe is telling us, Kinderlach, yes, there is a concealment, but you know what? There's going to be tremendous revelation. And then the Maimorim, when the Rebbe spoke the Sikha Matzah Yom Tov, and then the next Shabbos, and the next Shabbos, and all the time, the Rebbe's Magia every Sikha. We think that there's a slowdown. And by the Rebbe, there's more intensity. There's more in a different form, but the Gilui is there. So,
what changed before and after? Like in terms of
a lot of things.
No, not tech. I mean, whatever you want to say, but was it just like a list of what they released, or was it also psychological?
Psychological.
Right.
Psychologically, we felt that, I would say we discovered that the Rebbe is a human being.
Did discover that.
We discovered.
Right.
If he can have a heart attack, you weren't even allowed to say the word heart attack. That's how taboo it was.
At the time.
Yeah.
Rebbe didn't have a heart attack.
He didn't have a heart. He just
didn't
feel good. Whatever.
Mamish.
Yeah, I knew it was a heart attack because I heard from the doctors.
Right.
But I kept it to myself.
Wait. Yeah, but there was evidence here. The Rebbe had left Hakafis, and then he didn't. And he come the next Hakafis, and everybody said he's not feeling well.
Yeah.
Not feeling well.
It wasn't a thing to say. You didn't describe him. The Rebbe is a malach. The Rebbe is something else. But all of a sudden, you discovered he's a human being. When the Rebbe spoke the first time, his voice was very weak.
Right.
We didn't see the Rebbe for so many weeks. It took a lot.
Right.
We felt afterwards, and again, something the Rebbe was not happy. The minute the Rebbe started going out, our feeling was stay away from the Rebbe. Like Chanukah, the Rebbe gave out dollars that year.
First time.
It
wasn't called dollars yet. It was Chanukah
Geld.
No,
it was Chanukah Geld.
For kids.
No, for everyone.
Everyone.
And the approach was, our feeling was, stay away, don't go.
Leave him, let him rest.
Let him rest. So,
right.
If everyone will go, it'll take so many more hours. I was not happy with these things. The Rebbe said we should make announcements at the later opportunities by Keshel Brocha and things like that. Whoever is preventing people from coming over to me when I want to be with the people is fighting me. The Rebbe was very sharp word. The Rebbe called him a tipesh or something, used them like strong words. Don't hold yourself back. So the Rebbe is constantly sending messages. I'm in full control.
How do you square that with realizing that the Rebbe is a human being? There's two opposites,
yes.
Two opposite ideas.
Two opposite ideas, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you lived with that.
Yeah, I feel like there was a massive turning point in the psychology of Chassidim vis-a-vis the Rebbe after Rosh Chodesh Kislev.
Well, I'll give you.
No, I mean, I think there's a very direct line almost from there to what happened 14 years later, right?
There is no question.
Right.
There's no question.
A real turn happened.
There's no question. I mean,
Right.
For example, right after when yeshiva had to start, after Tishrei, they
Right.
started off by not letting Bochrim learn in the Zal upstairs. Everybody should learn downstairs.
Why? The Rebbe was staying in his office the whole
The
time?
Rebbe was in his office the whole time, yes.
They didn't take him upstairs.
No, the Rebbe was in his office the whole time. The Rebbe went upstairs a few times for walks or things like that.
But the Rebbe's hospital room, so to speak.
Yes, the Rebbe's hospital room was in his room all the way.
His office.
Yes. So they locked the front door at 770 and they
didn't want any noise
closed
upstairs.
down the Zal. And I don't remember if the Rebbe found out about it or the Rebbe asked, how come I don't hear the Kol HaTeira? I'm not sure what it was. The Rebbe said, I want the Zal to be open.
Right.
Should let the Bochrim in. One thing that we did, we stopped smoking in the Zal. Until then, the Zal was a smoke-filled room.
Right.
We stopped. I mean, we did take measures. I remember when the Rebbe came down for the first upbringing with this Kislev, I was, I guess, part of the Vadam Sadr, whatever, setting up the benches, and we made a lot more space.
Yutas Kislev.
Yutas Kislev Tov Shin Lamet Ches was the first time the Rebbe came down to Fabring in 770.
And it was a full Fabringen?
Full Fabringen, yes.
It went for hours,
not as many hours as in the past.
So
it was probably 2.5 hours or whatever.
A full Fabringen with
a full Fabringen.
Absolutely,
yes. And the Rebbe had monitors on him.
Even then?
Yeah. The doctors were, they say, was it then? That the calmest moment by the Rebbe, the doctor, was when the Rebbe said the Maimer. I think it was Dr. Resnick.
I heard that about earlier.
The first
night,
Shabbos, yes. Yeah. But I think then also. He was sitting upstairs by the Rebbe's room.
And he was worried because it's not supposed to be so
calm. And all of a sudden he saw that everything went flat. He ran down and he sees the Rebbe saying the Maimer. Mm-hmm. So I think that was then. But when we prepared for the Fabringen, so it used to be behind the Rebbe, there were 3 benches, 3 rows
of Chassidim.
So they were mamish on top of the Rebbe.
All right.
Then I remember we made a change. We took away 1 row. There were only 2. You moved back. And also you try to create
more space,
whatever, call it fresh air, whatever we had in our minds.
How did you negotiate with Chassidim who used to have their places?
That was a tough one. It was a tough one.
Sounds like
that's why I remember
sounds like kibbudim at a chuppah.
That's why I remember it, because it was not an easy thing.
No.
But we had to do it. The same thing was when the Rebbe would come down and daven around the Rebbe's place. From then on, the Rebbe started coming Pesach. So
the 2 rows behind was from then on for good.
That's it. It remained for good, yeah.
And not just for then.
Yeah. But it started then, and then when the Rebbe started coming down for davening, the space around the Rebbe's corner also widened.
Right.
There were even the Shvil.
Right.
The Shvil also
became bigger.
Later on, you couldn't.
There was a sense that you had to pay proper attention to the Rebbe's health.
You had to respect the Rebbe's health, the Rebbe's human, whatever.
But at the same time, the fact that the Rebbe overcame it and was even more prolific was the opposite message. Yeah,
that's what you dealt with.
Yeah.
That's what you dealt with, absolutely. Mitzad, you know.
I mean, so maybe that's also one of the reasons that people ask less questions. Then it's very hard to ask questions on something that seems impossible to understand.
Granted,
right?
I mean, I never thought I'll be in control of anything, of everything, or anything.
Right.
And the Rebbe is showing me he is in control.
Right.
So
that's what the Rebbetzin said about.
Try to figure it out.
That's what the Rebbetzin said about the Rebbe by going to the hospital. she told Rabbi Kernsky. I remember this is how I heard it. So obviously you're hearing it from me, remembering what someone else told me. But she said that all the years that I know my husband, he has always been in control of himself.
So I heard, yeah.
Yeah, I heard the same thing, which is a fascinating statement. That like the way she defined him almost was ultimate self-control.
Absolutely, and this comes now. We can take this leading up to the Rebbe said about the Frierdiker Rebbe all the time that he knew Yud Shvat was coming. He prepared for Yud Shvat, and he put everything in place.
Right.
The Rebbe said he put everything in place. How the Rebbe said of himself, I don't know, but I trust him. I come back to the publishing of Chassidus that I mentioned to you before. The Rebbe always repeated many times, and you can hear sometimes pain. The Rebbe was sometimes choking up when he said, the Rebbe Rashab said, Ir geh in Himmel und Ksovim lo zechayich.
Right.
And the Rebbe asked the question, what benefit do I get from he left me Ksovim?
Right.
If he went in Himmel, if he's gone,
Right.
what do I have from the Ksovim? And the Rebbe explained that the Rebbe is in the Ksovim. The Rebbe is saying, Ir geh in Himmel, my body, or the way you look at me now, I'm not going to go to heaven.
The Rebbe Shab said that to the Frierdiker Rebbe directly, or said
Yes.
to the Frierdiker Rebbe
On that night.
on the night of the P'tira.
Yes. And the Rebbe would tell us in Ksovim, just like the Eibishter is anon nafshi Ksovis Yehovah, that the Eibishter put himself in Teirah, a Rebbe puts himself in Teirah. Now, it comes a certain point where if you want the Rebbe, he is in the Sforim, but not as a Sefer. You see, that's
Right.
the Rebbe kept drilling it into us. Why? Why was it important?
Right.
The Rebbe prepared us. And that's why he said, I'll give you as much Chassidus as I can. And why do we need the Rebbe Rashab's Chassidus? Or why do I need all the previous generations? Why is it not enough? You know, we have 250 Sforim of the Rebbe alone. No, if you want to really understand the Rebbe, you must learn earlier Chassidus. There's no way you can thoroughly understand the Rebbe if you don't know earlier Chassidus.
Well, I would think also it's because the Rebbe Shab is your Rebbe too. You have a lot.
Fine.
Right.
I'm not going into the theology of it.
Right.
I'm going into the
Practical.
how the Rebbe is simply, he took every possible thing.
No, because I'm saying it follows the same logic that you're talking about the
I
Ksovim Lazachayich.
I understand.
If a Rebbe can be found as a Rebbe in his Sfarim, so then in a way that means that the Rebbe Rashab is your Rebbe and the Frierdiker Rebbe is your Rebbe and the Tzemach Tzedek, and they all
But
are.
I am not going to subscribe, for example, knowing so many Chassidim, I know, for example, there is a group of Yungelites somewhere who they are called the Mittel Rebbe's Chassidim because they're into the Mittel Rebbe's Chassidus. I'm aware of such a group of Yungelites. I don't think...
They call themselves that, or other people make fun of them that way?
And maybe other people make fun of it. I don't know. But I know they're into the Mittel Rebbe's Chassidus. Now,
sounds like there could be worse things.
It's the most beautiful thing. But to say, we're going to start learning the Alter Rebbe's, we're going to be the Alter Rebbe's Chassidim. We're going to be the Mittel Rebbe's Chassidim. We're going to be the Tzemach Tzedek Chassidim. That
sounds like people making fun of them.
Even if the Rebbe is giving us all their Chassidus, we are still connected to them through the Rebbe.
Fair.
And the Rebbe is giving us all the tools. And the Rebbe made sure, guys, if you're going to want me, you're going to have me. But what the Rebbe is doing something even more than that.
Right.
I don't know if it's a proper way of saying it, but he's forcing himself on us. He's showing us that he's there. He's showing us we can't manage without him. And he's showing us it's okay, I'm there. I'm with you.
What's the pshat
I'll tell you.
what's
I'll give you an
pshat forcing?
example. I'll give you an example. This is also one of those things that you bring up.
Okay.
The Rebbe started the first Fabringen. He says, don't think that you're going to pick yourself a Rebbe. He's going to do the work, and you can all go tachas gafne, tachas teno, so you can go and enjoy your couch. No, you got to work. You got to step up to the plate. Then came Chof Ches Nissen.
Right.
The way I see it.
I mean, just for people, you're talking about 42 year.
40, more like 40 years later.
Yeah.
More correctly, it's 40 years later.
You're right.
After an entire year when the Rebbe spoke that it's 40 years, and it's time you should stand on your own feet.
Right.
Then the Rebbe says, Chof Ches Nissen, everything I have done to do what? Now here, I go against the grain, or most people, I think, literally misinterpret what the Rebbe says for no good reason. It seems like the message of the Rebbe was everything I did to help bring Mashiach didn't work.
You're talking about the Hevel of the Rik?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Everything I did to help bring Mashiach was for naught.
Right.
Therefore, I'm giving it over to you.
Yeah.
You do whatever you can. Now, you can imagine a choshed thinking to himself, the Rebbe says, I failed.
You're going to succeed where I failed.
I will. Makes no sense.
Right.
But, so I say, this is not what the Rebbe said.
Right.
The Rebbe focused on one point. The Rebbe said, even if you would say Ad Mosai once, mit an emes, Mashiach would have come a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
So the Rebbe says, there's an emes. What is emes? Emes is Aveda Pnimis. And the Rebbe says, what else can I do? Everything I've done to get you to say Ad Mosai mit an emes failed. Not everything I tried to do to bring Mashiach, but everything I tried to get you to come to the point of emes. In other words, in my understanding, the Rebbe said, I told you 40 years ago, you got to do your own work.
Right.
You failed me on that. As the saying goes, you can bring the horse to the water. You can't force him to drink. I'm trying, I'm begging, and I'm begging, and I'm begging. That didn't work. You failed. What's the Eitzah? And as in the parentheses, it says, the Iker is that you are lacking. You're an agolus pnimi.
Well, he didn't really say you failed. He said it failed.
You are in agolus pnimi in Avedas Hashem. No, but the Rebbe says, I did everything to get you to say mitanemes. Right. So who's the failure?
Right, I've done everything I can. Right.
You are the failure that you didn't.
No, because I'm wondering, maybe it means
you can't whip a person into Aveda Pnimis.
It could also be that the Rebbe is saying that this condition of me being here and trying to get you to do it yourself is simply impossible. I'm saying
what I want to say is,
okay.
That's what the Rebbe said. I'm giving it over to you.
Right.
Until now, you have been still relying on me in spite of what I told you.
Right, because that
you've been relying on me. Where? How? So I say, again, I'm giving you my own feelings.
Yeah.
The Rebbe over the years was there for us. You weren't up to the Alter Rebbe, you weren't up to Aveda Pnimis, you're out.
Right.
By the Rebbe, it's okay. You know what? I'll find another way.
Right.
The Rebbe gave Keshel Brocha. The Rebbe gave Lekach. The Rebbe gave Matzah. These were not things. These are not Chabad things.
They also gave Shlichus. I mean, he gave Miftzayim.
Shlichus is work.
He gave Miftzayim.
You mean to say that you can have a relationship with the Rebbe also only through doing the work on Shlichus?
Right.
Also only through doing the work on Miftzayim.
I'm not trying to minimize
Shlichus. No, I agree. You know what? I agree with you. Not only that, about Miftzayim, when it came to Bochrim, we know there were answers to Bochrim. Don't be meshached me, don't bribe me with doing Miftzayim. You're a Bocher, you got to sit and learn.
Right.
Even though Miftzayim was something the Rebbe wanted.
Right.
So, the Rebbe himself did so many things to help us be Polish Chassidim. The Rebbe said it.
Right.
The Rebbe did it. He did.
Why,
I remember.
why do you think he did it? I mean, he must have known
He
that.
knew.
He must have known.
He knew his customers. I remember, this is something I remember vividly, when the Rebbe spoke about the neighborhood, about Crown Heights, about strengthening Crown Heights. The Rebbe started talking about it, Pesach, Tovshin Chavtes, 1969. The following...
So you're a young bacher at this time.
I was just about Bar Mitzvah.
Bar Mitzvah, yeah.
I was not yet Bar Mitzvah.
Yeah, around that.
I became Bar Mitzvah on the Shabbos, which was already Chanukah, Tovshin Lamed.
Mm-hmm.
The Rebbe said, I've been talking about the neighborhood for so long, and nothing is moving, nothing is happening. The Rebbe said, I have an idea. We're going to start a corporation. So first the Rebbe said, he used an expression, it's very unusual for the Rebbe to use that expression, but he did. The Rebbe said, Der Elom will doch Polish Amaises.
Right.
You want Polish type of chassidus. You know what? I'll give you Polish Amaises. What is he going to do? The Rebbe says, we're going to start a corporation. We're going to raise funds to buy houses in Crown Heights. And the Rebbe said, Vani Amaschel, I'll be the first one. I'm going to buy the first share for $500. I will pay the $500 in singles. And everyone else who buys a share for $500 will get one of those dollars to invest in this company, and this company will be able to buy houses in the neighborhood. How did the Rebbe describe it? Giving dollars? Polish Amaises. So, by dollars, when the Rebbe started giving dollars, which is in Tovshin Memvov in 1986 on a regular basis,
right.
What did the Rebbe say? The Rebbe said, this is Yichidus.
So
the Rebbe said that the dollars will be Yichidus. In other words, you could have had your Yichidus whenever you went over to the Rebbe for dollars.
So you're saying it could either be Polish Amaises or Yichidus.
So the Rebbe,
one or the
took
other.
the concept of Yichidus and connected it with the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
If you had Seichel,
It's Yichidus.
It's Yichidus. You didn't have Seichel, so you were just like another...
Polish Amaises.
Yeah. And this is something... The Rebbe allowed it.
What you said earlier that he knew his customers. What do you mean?
He knew his chassidim that we're not willing to step up to the plate. He's just going to try to cajole us this way and the other way and the third way. But I'm not going to abandon you or throw you away because you are not up to the task.
This was something that people felt at the time, that the Rebbe is frustrated, that the Rebbe doesn't have the adequate...
It's hard to... maybe there were some people who thought that way. I'm not going to say that I ever thought that. I maybe felt guilty. I can say as a bocher, I felt guilty, maybe because of my mashpim. Why am I not up to par? Why am I not up to standard?
Right.
Because the Rebbe demands a lot more.
That's why I was asking about the Yechidus
When
earlier.
you went into Yechidus, okay, very good. When I went into Yechidus, you were shaking. You were physically shaking, waiting, or that day, you were, Uis Mensch. I'm going into Yechidus, how am I facing the Rebbe? And even then I didn't utilize it properly. I'm thinking to myself, what stupid questions? How come I never asked the Rebbe a serious question? It bothers me. But
Well,
today it really bothers me.
You were a young man.
But still,
Right.
you should have, I don't know, maybe my mashpim should have told me. I don't know.
Right.
I don't have the answer to everything. But you were shaking. You knew you're missing, you're lacking, you're not up to what the Rebbe wants. There's a lot more expected from you. The Rebbe wants more, but you know what? It goes away, The Rebbe still smiled to you, or still gave you, still answered you l'chaim by fabring. You know what it meant? The Rebbe answered l'chaim by fabring.
So you were looking forward to Yechidus, or you weren't looking forward?
You were looking forward, but what can I say? Maybe for the wrong reasons. Maybe for the wrong reasons. Like the Frierdiker Rebbe writes in his letter. You're doing it because it's the style. I don't know.
Right. It's your.
I shouldn't be the real spokesman. I'm sure. I know I had Chaverim, a little older than me, that I know, who had serious yichidus. So I'm not going to completely.
All right. You're speaking for yourself. That's fine.
I'm speaking for myself. That's all.
Right.
But you were missing that. You tried to get away with the Arum,
Right.
and the Rebbe said, "Okay, let's see what we can do. Let's maybe Moshiach will come regardless." And Chof Ches Nissen, the Rebbe expressed his frustration. You know, it came to a point where.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, you know, the story, when you look back at it, makes so much sense. If you frame it this way, it makes so much sense. You know, the Rebbe is reluctant to become Rebbe in the first place. He has a firm belief in many ways that he describes later on, that the Frierdiker Rebbe took care of everything. Well, let's just do it that way. Let's just be Chassidim of the Frierdiker Rebbe. Then he becomes Rebbe, and he's trying to kind of force the issue almost, that people should get to a place that he wants them to get to. They don't get there. That's the story of Moshe Rabbeinu. He's trying to get them to Eretz Yisrael in a way that he and they can go into Eretz Yisrael together. That's the story of the Torah. But I'm saying that's the center story, is that the Jewish people finally have a person who is going to lead them as a people to the promised land, and literally chaos and drama ensues from the first moment, right? And the whole next few Svarim are Moshe Rabbeinu trying, and the Bnei Yisrael also trying to figure out how to both get into Eretz Yisrael together, which if they would have, we're told Mashiach would have come. But of course, that's not what happened. And it seems like the same thing happened here. Like, you know, it couldn't happen together. That's a story that you're telling me. I mean, I don't know that couldn't happen together, but it makes sense that it couldn't happen together.
I don't know enough behind the scenes.
But that's what you described to me.
What I do want to say, yeah, I'm describing to you my experience, not necessarily with all the full understanding behind the scenes, but I will say, this brings me again to my excitement, to my oxygen, which is today's generation. You asked me, you know, there's the romantic picture of what's going on today.
Right.
But there's also the other side. Now, let's go back 100 years. How many Chassidim were then? Let's go back another 50 years.
Yeah,
when Ketmimim started, there wasn't like the elite group, and then there was the rest.
There always was. No, there always was, yeah.
So, but the positive...
No, I brought that up only in regards to when you're talking about Gilui and Helam Atzmi, what that does open up when you're talking in that broader words. What that opens up is even the people who don't look the part, they're also.
I feel that's so strong.
Right.
I feel that's so strong. I mean, I know what's going on. Talking as a Crown Heightser.
Right.
There are shuls in Crown Heights, the shiurim. You can walk in 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning in certain shuls.
Right.
Shiurim and Ein Beis.
Right.
And you're gonna walk in. I'm gonna look. Him?
Yeah.
Like he doesn't have the look.
Right.
He doesn't have the appearance. So what?
Right.
Look at him. He's getting up 5:30 to learn Hemshech Ein Beis. He's learning the real McCoy. You have, and then I'm going to go a little more. Today's Bochrim, and this I heard, this is not my own invention. I already heard it.
Right.
Not too long after Gimmel Tammuz. Like, I don't know, I would say you got to check the dates when certain of these people passed away. But there was still some of the elder Chassidim. My grandfather was still around. Rabbi Yehuda Chitrik was still around.
Who's your grandfather?
My grandfather was Chaikel Chanin.
Chaikel Chanin, your mother's father.
My mother's father, and he did manage the Chapara in Lubavitch, even though after the Rebbe Rashab left. But he was in Lubavitch. So he went through the whole ride. And he said, and there were others, I think Rabbi Yehuda Chitrik said, he walked into 770. He said it with the full truth. He said, there was never such a beautiful sight in Lubavitch.
Rabbi Yehuda Chitrik said this.
The original Lubavitch, yes.
He said this to you.
He said it, yeah. He said it to me and to others. He says the beauty. He looks at a bocher, he sees bochrim today. Bochrim, today, I think, 20 years later, it's more. It's, I meet bochrim, I see real pnimizdike bochrim. This is crazy. Mesiras Nefesh girls. Crazy. Real. They learn chassidus. They take it to heart. They really, this is something, I think now the Rebbe is succeeding a lot more than he did before. And I know I'm not the only one saying that. The Rebbe is succeeding a lot more with the bochrim today, with the girls, than he did with us. I was just thinking, maybe I'll tell you something.
Well, I mean, if the goal was to get people to act on their own, or to act with their own, to act on themselves, it makes sense. Right?
It is. It's happening.
Right.
If it didn't happen, then I have a problem. But looking back, it's happening.
Right.
I'm amazed every time I spend the Shabbos with bochrim. Sometimes it's by the oil, and sometimes it's here, and whatever. Or I go to a yeshiva. I spend the Shabbos in a yeshiva. I don't know what to say. I'm on a high. Right. They put me on a high. I just remembered something. You may be interested, and you may be not. You're asking about how we felt about asking questions and not understanding things. Because it's you, I want to say it.
Okay.
Your great-grandfather, your Ben Shem Tov.
Yeah.
We grew up with him. He was like...
I think in
Mesiras
770.
Nefesh.
In
Yeah.
770.
He was like the symbol of absolute Mesiras Nefesh.
Right.
But he also had his harsh side to him.
Right.
He would walk around, if you spoke in the middle of davening by the Rebbe's minyan, he would give it to you like...
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes he would even give you a pinch or a slap. And you know what? I'm looking back. We loved him. We so loved him. I'm going to use the expression, we loved him to death. I loved him literally to death. I was by his deathbed like 6 hours before he passed away.
In Kfar Chabad?
In Kfar Chabad, yes.
Oh, you were there?
I was on Shlichus that year. And that experience, we were so... Maybe I'll share with you. This is a very... To you, should be very personal. Your grandfather, great-grandfather, was in Kfar Chabad to set up the Mochen Levi Yitzchak, which was to translate the Rebbe Shlichus in Hebrew.
Right.
And you're talking...
You're talking about the trip that when he passed away?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're talking 50 years ago.
Right.
To set up a printing shop, apparently, was heaven and earth.
Right.
And bit by bit, put together, he got a place, he got machines, and then he needed somebody to work the machines. So, for some reason, I don't know why, but he imported Yenison Hackner, otherwise known as Johnny Hackner,
right,
from London. I'll never forget this. It was Friday morning, a beautiful summer Friday morning in Sivan, the end of Sivan. And your grandfather is in the center of Kfar Chabad, Rebbe, the center of Kfar Chabad, literally dancing in the street. Johnny is gekommen. Johnny came. Wir wird neben drucken dem Rebbe Shlichus. We're going to start printing the Rebbe Shlichus.
Oh, that's how he spoke?
Yeah, he spoke with a shh. He didn't say a sin, he said a shin.
Uh-huh.
Johnny is gekommen, wir geht neben drucken dem Rebbe Shlichus. He was literally dancing in the street. And this was a scene. An älterer Lied.
Yeah, yeah.
And we rejoiced with him. Why not? I mean, I'm telling you, we so loved him. You can't imagine. And I'm saying this in spite of the fact we got enough petch from him and enough screaming at, we still loved him. There was this feeling of...
This is an hour before he got hit by a car.
Not an hour. I'll tell you, there's another 36 hours.
Oh, it was after Shabbos.
That was Friday afternoon. Shabbos, there was a Fabrengen in Kfar Chabad. Leibel Groner, the Rebbe secretary, came to Eretz Yisrael to bury his mother. So he was sitting Shiva in Eretz Yisrael, and Shabbos he was invited to Fabreng Kfar Chabad. I can imagine. Kfar Chabad, Fabrengen,
A masker.
Smasker, the whole Kfar came. The big shul, then the Merkozi, and there was a Fabreng. Somebody in the audience did not like a statement that Label made. So he went ballistic Israeli style. The bottom line was he disrupted the Fabrengen. Your Rebbe was screaming, chutzpah, dem Remes mashkir, whatever. But Lepoil, the Fabrengen fell apart. So it broke up to small Fabrengens, and there was one Fabrengen, one table where Rebbe sat down right next to his brother-in-law, Reb Mendel. They were sitting together by the table, and we gathered around. Suddenly Rebbe turns to his brother, to Reb Mendel, and says, Mendel, ich fühl sich jetzt wie jener Zionist. Gedenkst du Meische in Lager? Ich fühl sich wie jener Zionist. He says, I feel like this particular individual, a Zionist. Your story that you told us about the labor camp. And they both crack up laughing. And we're like standing there. What's going on? We started harassing them. You must tell us the story. Finally, Reb Mendel told the story. Now, when he was in the labor camp in 1948, together with him was a certain Zionist who was in prison for Zionism. Reb Mendel was in prison for Yiddishkeit. Anyway, they were together. And this Zionist constantly would talk about the future Jewish state.
Right.
Until there came the point where the news came. There is a new Jewish state in Israel. So this Zionist said, now that I know that the Jewish flag is flying over Tel Aviv, I can die in peace. A few weeks later, he died. That's Reb Mendel's telling the story. And Reb Mendel and your great-grandfather crack up laughing. Like, it's the biggest joke. The next morning, he was hit by the car. I mean, this was like, I witnessed this with my own eyes. But no, there are two things. First of all, the specialty of these people is like from a different planet. But also, our reverence, I can't repeat myself enough, how much we revered Rebbe, even though he symbolized the rough hand. It was,
and the point, you make that point a few times.
we took it, we tolerated it, that was normal.
Right.
So it's not perfect. So it's not the way you would like it to be. We accepted it. It was like, that's how we grew up. Maybe you want some explanations. Maybe we look back. How did our parents grow up? Our parents didn't have a piece of bread to eat.
Right.
So we should complain. It was like, today it doesn't go.
Right.
I know that. And that's why this whole conversation, all these questions, they open up. It's a different world. They open my mind.
Right.
I have to think. I have to think of answers. I have to draw on my life's experience. And that's why I share. I feel I'm obligated. One of the reasons that I resolved that I will always respond positively if somebody asks me to talk or fabring or share or to come on a podcast was because of an experience. I'm going to tell you, this was a life changer for me. and made a life's commitment. It was a Simchas Torah in 770. After 48 hours of dancing and drinking and who knows what, you're already exhausted, you're waiting for the last few hours to pass. The bocher walks over to me, tells me, tell me something. I said to him, what do you want me to tell me? Whatever there is to say is published. And you know what's published better than me. What can I tell you? I was just looking to get rid of him. But he grabbed me by my collar and said, if you won't say, I won't know. And you know what? The Eibishter put us in this position. Certain age, we came around a few years earlier, we experienced, we witnessed, we have to share. That's why I use this opportunity, and I'm grateful for what you're doing. You're making things happen. That's great. I can only wish you a lot of success.
Thank you. On that note, I don't want to end now. I don't want to end right here. I would like to ask you a little bit about Rosh Hashana, but I just want to change the battery. Give me a second. All right. So I wanted to ask you on that note about we're sitting a few days before Rosh Hashana, before Tishrei, and describe a little bit what it was like back in the day. What would the frame of mind be a week before Rosh Hashana?
First, your approach to Tishrei was, what says in Chassidus? This is the month that sets the year. We are at the epicenter.
Right.
This is where it's happening. The Rebbe's Tkiyas are the Tkiyas of the Jewish people. The Rebbe's Ne'ilah is the Ne'ilah of the Jewish people. Sukkot is, and Simchas Torah, the joy by the Rebbe is it.
Right.
So that was the anticipation. What kind of Tishrei is it going to be? As far as looking at the Rebbe. And you would try to look at every tiny move of the Rebbe and see, or project on the rest of the year. But really, it was excitement. It was plain and simple excitement. Starting, first of all, okay, you got to remember, we are coming from a summer that was like a...
How early are your memories about this? Like from when you were a kid, you grew up here, right?
From a kid, from a pretty young age.
When did you start paying attention to Tkiyas? Like, for example?
Tkiyas, I would say probably, I don't know, could be as early as 8 years old. In the tiny, small first section of 770.
What was the impression then?
The pushing, the seriousness, and we got to remember in those years that Rebbe would cry a lot.
At the earlier years, Rebbe would cry more.
Yes. So
during
on
Tkiyas,
a child,
you're saying during Tkiyas and the Psukim.
before Tkiyas, the Psukim, the Maftir, it was a lot. And on a child, made a very strong impression that Rebbe was crying.
Right.
So that...
So you're saying Rebbe cried much more then than other times of the year?
For sure.
Right. You're talking about the Haftarah of Chana and...
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
More the Haftarah of Chana than the second day, which is...
it's more just...
which is more... But it's Nevuah, Ben Yakir, and things like that, yeah. But it's still...
Right.
You would think that is more connected to Rosh Hashana than Chana.
Okay. But Chana is a tearjerker.
It was.
That story.
It was. We always heard the Rebbe the way Halal Narazei Spololti or Ishok Shas Ruach HaNeichi V'Eshpechas Nafshi.
He would cry the words Al Narazei Spololti. Or that's what
Yeah. V'eshbeches nafshi lifnei Hashem. Yeah. Those were even later.
he would cry those words.
Yes. And there was an aura. There was an Tishrei. First of all, guests came. Remember, there were guests.
Right.
And that created an atmosphere. Even by the Rebbe, guests were a major thing. My first, I don't know, probably from my first memories is when Reb Mendel came. The first time.
He stuck out.
Of course. Reb Mendel together with Reb Moshe Sasonkin.
Because they were friends of your grandfather? Because...
No.
Just
on a simple level, they both had casquettes. They didn't have hats. They were noticeable.
Reb Mendel also had been in Siberia for a bunch of years.
And they had these big, beautiful beards.
Big eyebrows.
And the Rebbe paid attention to them. He invited them to be with him on the Bima by Tkiyas.
Really?
Yes, of course.
Every year Reb Mendel stood at the Bima?
I believe so.
Why?
I believe so.
What they gave a reason?
It started off as the Russian Jews.
They were the only Russian Jews, or they were the ones who had come out the last?
No. Then they were probably the only ones, but as Russian Jews came...
They all stood on the Bima?
Yes.
They all stood on the Bima?
Yes. This started, they came, 1964? Tovshin Chavhei, I think, was the first year they came.
Right.
Then Tovshin Chavches was another group of Russian Jews, and the Rebbe invited them on the Bima as well. And then Tovshin Lamed Beis, when the whole Nachlas Har Chabad, I mean, when there were like the big immigration, they were also invited. Yes,
they were also on the Bima.
They were also on the Bima.
Would you have wanted to stand on the Bima?
It depends from what vantage point. From being able to see the Rebbe, no.
Right.
You wanted to be in the front. Right. Being on the Bima, you couldn't see. But why wouldn't even enter my mind. Why would I want to be on the Bima? Like,
stop asking.
Who am I? Like, I can't relate to being there. It's not my role. It's not so it doesn't bother me. I have no yearning for it. You wanted a good spot where you can see the Rebbe.
Right. Like, what age did that start?
At a young age, because my father always tried to be at a good spot, and I was always with him. So he always used to try to buy his seats. In those years, you were still able to move around. So he would try to say, oh, this is a better seat. That's a better seat. You're going to have a better position.
Also, the shul was changing. The shul was changing every few years.
I was always, I believe he always bought a seat for me as well.
Right. You're the eldest?
I'm the oldest. So my father always bought seats for the kids.
Right.
And the last seats that he bought were in a great position. They were on the Bima of the Fabrengen Bima, right at an angle to the Bima of the Tkiyas. So it was a great place.
And when you were a bacher, you still were able to be there, or you had to?
No, I would go to. I tried to be a smart guy. I'm a bocher. I'm going to push with a bocher. But it didn't pay off. To be in the washing machine was not an option. It wasn't
very pleasant.
No. I never got closer than the fourth. I was like the fourth guy from the Bima. It was very pushy, very hard, and you couldn't stand in one place to see, so I was better off next to my father. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you were able to see a lot more. You were able to see like from top down.
And what did you think you were seeing? What did you feel you were seeing?
I'll use the language of one of my mashpim.
Okay. Well, only if you follow it with your own language.
When the Rebbe moves his hand, that's chesed atzilas.
Okay. What did you see?
I saw the Rebbe. I saw there's the saying of the Tzemach, the saying the Rebbe repeated it, that Tzemach Tzedek used to make order in Petersburg on Rosh Hashana.
That's what you saw yourself?
You would look, that's what you would think.
What did you see?
I saw the way the Rebbe is organizing the Shofars. This way, that way, the other way, folding the tichel. He had the red Tzemach Tzedek's tichel there, and he put it this way and this way and the other way. And there. He's doing things. This is not just folding a shofar for convenience and covering it or whatever. He is organizing things. When the Rebbe would blow shofar, there was one year that the Rebbe blew shofar, I think the Truah, the last Truah, took like, I think over a half hour, close to 40 minutes.
To get it out.
The Rebbe couldn't get it out. It was very hard. It was crazy pushing. People fainted.
You're talking about one of the later years?
Well, later. Early Lamets.
Oh, okay.
I mean, maybe it's later.
No, because I heard
early
some thing like the
early Lamets. No, later years, Tkiyas were a lot smoother.
The Rebbe's Tkiyas went smoother.
Yeah, the Rebbe sometimes you just put the shofar in his mouth and just go.
Really?
And the earlier years, he used to take it out and try this way, try that way, and you looked at it and you said the Rebbe's fighting forces.
And later years?
Later years, we felt it's going smooth.
So there was a narrative there.
To me, in my eyes, for sure.
And Erste and it was more difficult, and now...
Or he had to break through more difficult things.
It's so interesting because...
Talking about the Russians, yeah?
Yeah.
The Rebbe invited the Russians on his bima for Tkiyas.
Right.
There must have been a reason for it.
Right.
Not that I know, but...
Right.
Russia was so much on the Rebbe's mind. All the years when I was a child, I remember how the Rebbe used to cry about the Russian Jews and promise they're going to come out and they're going to come back. Who in his right mind believed that the Iron Curtain is ever going to open? There was a little crack. Reb Mendel came, that was like God. But otherwise, nobody ever imagined. And the Rebbe just kept singing Yeshia Samecha with us, and the children especially. We should sing Yeshia Samecha for the Russian Jews. Part of your mind was Rosh Hashana. The Rebbe is trying to crack the Iron Curtain. That was like a normal thing. The Rebbe is blowing the Shea, and if there's a difficulty, that means that there's a challenge. I mean, we did. There are stories, the Alter Rebbe, how the Alter Rebbe outdid the Koznitzer Maggid, about Napoleon, who's going to blow shofar first.
That's that's such a fascinating thing. Not the specific thing about the Alter Rebbe, but it's fascinating how do we know these things about the earlier Rebbeim, the Baal Shem Tov, the Alter Rebbe? Part of it was that they said it openly, or so the stories go. And part of it is that they said it to the Rebbe after them. And then it became eventually, right? Eventually,
there is such a thing. There are stories that were passed down, and the Rebbe himself, when he told the story, says Meferish, this was passed down from Rebbe to Rebbe to Rebbe to Rebbe, and the Rebbe would say, and now it's being passed over to everyone. Right,
which is so interesting because, I'm sure the Chassidim were watching the Alter Rebbe also by Tkiyas and what he was doing, and there's Kavanas and Yechudim and all kinds of things going on, and they don't know what he's thinking, but either he tells them, or later on in history, people find out what he was doing. But with the Rebbe, there was no such. You're looking at this in a way the same thing, but
you mean to say he didn't share?
No, but there was no one to share it with. There was no next Rebbe. There was no.
But he did occasionally share certain things
about Tkiyas.
Let's take an example: Tkiyas or Tishrei events. Tishrei events. Rosh Hashana by the Rebbe was a very serious Yom Tov. Right. Serious to the degree he never spoke.
Right. All the Rebbeim.
Yeah.
Right.
Then suddenly, I believe it was Tafshin Lamed Aleph, the year of the Yom Kippur War,
Right.
where all of a sudden the Rebbe turned around and announced Gut Yom Tov 3 times. This was something that was reserved to Simchas Torah after HaKofas.
Oh, I thought after Yom Kippur, not after Yom Kippur.
Oh, and after Yom Kippur, you're right.
All right.
And after Yom Kippur, correct.
Right.
That was it.
Right.
Here, on Rosh Hashana, all of a sudden the Rebbe turns around and announces Gut Yom Tov, and he starts singing.
Which never happened before Rosh Hashana.
Of course not. And I'm not, maybe it was both. Maybe once it was V'shamachta, and once it was his father's nig.
After davening.
After davening. This was nuts. This is like, this was an indication this is going to be a special year. There's going to be
Something's going on.
something's going on. I remember we went outside after that. Everyone was dancing. Then they went outside dancing in the street. At that time, there were still some Belzer Chassidim. There was a Belzer Shtivel on Eastern Parkway, and they walked by, and they the Meshuggah in Lubavitch, what are they doing? Dancing Rosh Hashana afternoon. It was like,
Right.
so yes, that was one thing you were busy looking at the Rebbe Rosh Hashana, trying to use your little mind.
Right.
The way the Rebbe was davening, the way the Rebbe was encouraging singing. Was he more subdued? Did you see crying? Many times you saw crying.
But my point is, if the Rebbe was a Baal Shem Tov, how would we know? Like, if the Rebbe had... let me rephrase that question. If the Rebbe had stories and Muslim like the Baal Shem Tov, how would we know?
Sometimes we know from after the fact, we just see certain things happen, and sometimes the Rebbe did indicate. For example, that year, Tafshin Lamed Aleph.
Yeah, but when was there ever a story to the Rebbe that he said to someone that Alisi lehechel, and I met this and I met that?
So he didn't see, I don't know about Holisi. Well, there are such stories. There are such stories that... there's a story Rabbi Groner used to tell a lot about a shidduch that a bocher who came from a non-Lubavitch family became a Lubavitcher, and he did what every Lubavitcher bocher does. They suggested him, they offered him a shidduch, and he agreed, he accepted. I mean, he wrote to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe approved, and he's informing his parents that...
Right.
This is the girl. And the parents said, what is this?
Right.
We make that decision, and for some reason they even didn't like this. And there was a whole scandal. The parents came to him. 7 days they were screaming at the bocher. I think the mother gave him a slap. It was like a real not nice situation. And the Rebbe asked, what's going on? And Rabbi Groner told the Rebbe, what happened? So the Rebbe says, let her in. The Rebbe invited her into a room. And the Rebbe... and he wrote to the Rebbe that his parents are not approving. And the Rebbe still responded, okay. Approved of the shidduch. So the mother was fuming. What is this? Anyway, the Rebbe invited her to the room. And the Rebbe told her straight out, when somebody asks me for a shidduch, I go up, I look up the books of shidduchim to see if it's a match. And if I see it's a match, I approve. When you challenged, I thought maybe I missed something, so I went up and I checked again.
By went up, you mean?
To look in the books of shidduchim.
Right, there isn't a sefer of shidduchim in his library.
That I know of, no.
Right, okay.
He went on high. The mother walks out and she says Mazel Tov to the boy. She says, if the Rebbe can go and check out what's going on in Shemayim, I'm not fighting with him. You got the shidduch. That's a story. We heard it from Rabbi Groner many times. I'm sure there were other situations where there was a story about Rosh Hashana. The Rebbe used to send L'shon Teva cards. Letters, L'shon Teva letters that Rebbe used to send a lot to Anash till it became very out of control and the Rebbe stopped. But the Rebbe used to send
What, individual Anash?
Yeah. The Rebbe used to send to individual Anash, wishing them a L'shon Teva. Sometimes you would get it Pesach time, but The Rebbe signed letters like a Mazel Tov letter.
Mm-hmm.
So there was once a pile, and they gave the Rebbe the pile to sign, and the Rebbe is going through the signing, and the Rebbe then pulls out a few letters. He says, "These people are already not here anymore." In other words, the Maskiras took a list that they had from last year. The Rebbe says they're not here anymore. So he took them out of the pile. So Rabbi Groner wanted to take the letters and discard. And the Rebbe says, no, leave them here. You don't know where to send them. I do. There are such stories. There were stories about Israeli soldiers when
I'm not questioning.
I'm just telling you there are. So the Rebbe revealed.
I know, but compared to what we have from the Alter Rebbe and or the Rebbe in general, there's that the understanding of what's going on behind the curtain is less.
There's I don't know. I honestly don't. Right. I can't say that.
We don't.
I can't say that.
No.
I will agree that if the Rebbe didn't tell us, it's speculation.
No, but the Rebbe didn't have someone to tell the way the other Rebbeim did. Like his son.
Possible.
Right.
It's possible. But the Rebbe, for example, told us about the French anthem.
Right.
Tovshin Lamed Daled. The Rebbe suddenly, in the middle of a kofes, in the middle of the war, started singing Haderes Ve'emunah to the tune of the French anthem.
Right.
And then the Rebbe said that this made a change in the French government.
Yeah, look,
we took away their power.
Yeah, no, I understand. I'm just saying, it just strikes me when you describe by the tkiyas the kind of putting up the folding of the towel this way or that way and moving the shofar around, seen from a lens of a Baal Shem Tov, makes a lot of sense. But I don't feel like we generally see the Rebbe that way. There was someone who spoke Shlichus and Amarim and the Baal Shem Tov figure. That whole Himmeldik Meises feels less. I don't know, for whatever reason.
If you want to say we don't know how to interpret them,
yeah,
you're right.
That's what I'm saying. Because
he didn't share it.
That's what I'm saying. No.
But to say that we didn't look at it this way.
So you did look at it that way.
Of course,
right.
We always looked at that.
But you looked at the Rebbe in general like that? At a upbringing?
Yes, we very much looked at the Rebbe that way.
One second, at the Rebbe's upbringing, you felt that you were sitting at like the table of the Baal Shem Tov with the maisis of putting their hands on each other's shoulders and floating to different places.
It didn't have to have that drama. When the Rebbe comes back from the oil, 11 o'clock at night or earlier, even 9 o'clock at night, the Rebbe comes back and davens mincha like... And in the beginning, the Rebbe used to do it more in private. When he used to come late, he would daven mincha in Gan Eden Tacht next to his room, with this minion of 10 people. Then all of a sudden, the Rebbe started joining the crowd for a late mincha. And the later years, the Rebbe came downstairs to the big zal. And those were incredible. 2-3 hours after Shkia, after Ma'ariv time, and the Rebbe davens mincha in public.
People had problems with that, no?
No.
Outside Lubavitch.
Well, Chassidim had no problem because by Chassidim it's a non-issue.
Davening mincha late.
The Rebbe once walked out to daven mincha late. The Rebbe, there were a bunch of bells of Chassidim. It was the night of Mayim Shalonu.
Right.
So they would come and take Mayim Shalonu at the 770s.
Right.
Well, so the Rebbe turned. There was one of the bells of Chassidim. Now he's a Rebbe, the Narola Rebbe, Rebbe Shapiro. The Rebbe looked at him with a big smile when he walked into daven. He says, "No, Abel zer mincha."
You're saying Chassidim in general daven late.
By Chassidim, it wasn't a big deal. I mean, maybe it was way too late. But there is today. There's an Amshinover Rebbe who lives on his own schedule. There used to be the Ribnitzer Rebbe. I think they say used to also have his own schedule. Mm-hmm. And to us, that was something is going on. The Rebbe doesn't just daven mincha late.
Right. Everything was so masudar and everything was on the dot.
Yes.
Yeah.
You 100%. Every move of the...
No, the upbringing was always 1:30 exactly. Shlichus was always 10 o'clock exactly.
Exactly. So you looked at the Rebbe, everything is Himmlish, of course. Baal Shem Tov. You want to call it Baal Shem Tov? Baal Shem Tov. For me, it's fine. It's the Rebbe that I was zeichet to have, Dor HaShvi. It's incredible. And then you would find out things. The famous, it's one of those, I think it was Tovshim Mem Gimmel. No, it was Mem Hey probably. 84. There was a huge earthquake somewhere in California.
I know there's one in the 90s, but...
No. There was one in...
Okay.
And when the Rebbe did the Nanuim on Sukkot, so one day, the Rebbe took the lulav all the way down to the ground, which was not usual. The Rebbe never bent down that low. He did a little bit, but not bent down all the way to the ground a few times. Chassidim looked at it. This had to do with the earthquake. Do I know? Do I have any reason to think so? Well, it happened that day.
Right.
But I don't know. There's so many things that in Tov Chov Hey, there were certain things that Rebbe did on Rosh Hashana. And I just read a diary of Rabbi Heber, who was a bocher, then he came for Kvutze. And there were certain things that Rebbe did and said, I think it had to do with the Haftarah. And then it turned out that Chassidim then interpreted it very clearly. The Rebbe was anticipating the Ptira of his mother a few days later. The Rebbe was by the Farbrengen, Shabbos Shuvah. The Rebbe was Farbrengen while the doctor came and gave the Rebbe reports what was going on. And the Rebbe, there are certain Sikha was crying about Aster, it's a Hester within a Hester. There's a darkness, and there was sobbing. And when he finished the Farbrengen, he rushed to his mother's house. You always look to the Rebbe, there's something happening. We know. We don't know what,
right.
But we know that the Rebbe is busy doing things.
Right. I mean, that's ultimately, to me, the in a way, the deepest tension of or paradox of the relationship between a Rebbe and the Chassid, right? Because a relationship in general is defined by being able to be related, right? You know each other, you understand each other, you can know what this person means to to some extent. And with the Rebbe, there's always going to be this inarech. There's this fundamental divide. I mean, that's Hayom Yom says. You talk about your Hayom Yom project, right? The Uft of Chassidus, and I think it's the Getliche Uft of Chassidus. Yeah. One of my favorite Hayom Yoms. The Getliche Uft of Chassidus is that the Rebbe is nicht stellend and the Chassidim sind nicht stellend. Right?
Exactly.
Right. It's a Uftu. It's an Getliche Uftu because
even though
it
should worlds apart,
meaning that's why you need a Getliche Uftu, because they should be lonely.
That's right.
By definition, a Rebbe should be
exactly.
And it's
very strong point.
Right. It's a fascinating idea where, because we're describing earlier, Shlichus Kislev realizing that you have to take care you have to pay attention to the Rebbe's health and the physical parameters of that, of giving space, physical space, and so on, right? But at the same time, this man who's sitting in front of you and talking, there's always a layer behind or deeper that's completely out of reach. And that in general is again, to go back to the idea of Moshe Rabbeinu and Bnei Yisrael, right? There's always the idea of Moshe Rabbeinu and Bnei Yisrael going to Eretz Yisrael at the same time almost cannot happen, it seems. Like it cannot happen because Moshe Rabbeinu's steps are so much larger and faster than Bnei Yisrael. Right? For them to get in at the same time that he's going to get in, they can't. He's too big. He's too fast.
It's a constant paradox,
right,
that you got to live with.
Right.
On the one hand, we're Chabad.
Right.
Chabad means you have to use your
right.
intellect. the Rebbe gave us so much Torah. There's like so much we can. There's a certain connection that we do have with the Rebbe through his Torah, that you look at what the Rebbe taught us in his Torah.
Right.
The Rebbe's Torah is full of talking about Atzmus, something that in previous generations was not discussed that much,
Right.
if at all. And even when they spoke about Atzmus in previous generations, it was a level, it was like...
Right.
And the Rebbe went straight to the point of Atzmus, and full. So...
Wait, you felt that at upbringing, or just the way
Yeah,
the Rebbe
yeah.
interpreted the Mamar?
No, you verkehrt. By the Fabrengen, it was a little over your head.
Uh-huh.
Yale was able to
Bring it
down to something that you can relate to. You had to learn it before you... Sometimes you walked out of Fabrengen and your head was spinning. If you really concentrated, your head was spinning.
Right.
That was the big thing about Chazorah. That was the big thing about writing things down. But then, on the other hand, you're walking around with a Baal Shem Tov all the time.
Right.
And you're thrown into this. You're thrust into this position. Wer bin ich? Who am I? I'm such a little mortal.
Right.
So insignificant and so small. You think about previous generations, Chassidim, this is like... And still.
Right.
I mean, this is a schus. To be in this generation was an amazing schus, and I think now it's playing out fully. It really is playing out fully. At the whole Tishrei, you looked at the Rebbe, every part. Oh, how's that interpret for the year?
Right.
It's going to be a happy year. If the Rebbe swung his arm more times when he went in and out in later years, when he went in and out from davening, or when the Rebbe started swinging his arms when he walked in and out from davening. Today, tell somebody that the Rebbe walked into davening and it was silent.
Right. So what does someone think about today that they don't have that? What's Tishrei about? What's because I feel like
it's very hard for someone like me,
right,
who experienced all that,
right,
and to be in 770 and try to connect.
It's missing. Yeah.
I mean,
it's missing.
Tkiyas after Gimmel Tammuz, I don't know how to relate to it. I don't know how to call it. I don't know what it is. To me, Tkiyas is the Rebbe.
Right.
All of a sudden, what?
Right.
Pull your talus over your head and cry.
Right.
But what can I tell a young kid happens during Tkiyas? I can only tell them you should know the Rebbe is there with you and the Rebbe is blowing for you the Tkiyas. The fact that you don't see it is either because you don't need to see it or because you're connecting with it on a higher level. I don't know. I really don't know. I can only know what the bocher is like afterwards. I can only know, you go into 770, a bocher, they want to just cram into the place. You say 770. Same thing as by the oil. When the guys go to the oil, I don't understand. But guys go and they push to be closer to the holy place, and they keep the schedule of the Rebbe's davenings. That's amazing stuff.
Right. The question, though, is for me, the idea of Torah Nitzchis and the timelessness of certain things, I understand or I accept. Right. So, that Tkiyas is this kind. It's Tkiyas. There's a truth to it but what you're describing is a certain immediacy where the Tkiyas of Tov Lamed Daled is different from the Tkiyas of Tov Lamed Gimel. It's not just Nitzchis. It's fakert. It's specific to this time and place. And so the question that I ask is, when you're talking about the Tkiyas of Tafshin Pehei, what makes it Tkiyas of Tafshin Pehei? I understand you're talking about there's, the Rebbe's blowing Tkiyas, if that's what someone's thinking about, but that's an idea you're talking about something that's L'mayla min Azman.
I cannot answer that question.
Yeah.
I can tell you the difference between Lamed Gimel and Lamed Dalet,
Right.
because we are on a level of Giluyim.
Right.
We are on a level of Giluyim, so therefore we have to judge it by what we see.
Right.
We're limited to that.
Right.
It may be a limitation.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
To go and extrapolate from what I saw then to Tafshin Pehei, that's spooky. It's on my experience, it's very difficult.
Right.
I can't relate to it. On the other hand, something is happening. I don't know what. I can't answer. I would love to grab a bocher
But the following,
and hear him out. And I don't know.
I'm not a bacher, so wrong person for that experiment. But according to what you've been saying this whole conversation, the way I would understand it is that what's happening by Tkiyas of Tafshin Pehei is now in your hands. That's what's happening.
Okay, so
I'm not trying to cop out.
No. I'll tell you
I'm
what.
not trying to cop out. I'm not trying to say that that your Tkiyas is the same thing as Rebbe's Tkiyas, but in a way, it is. If you take what you've been talking about to its logical conclusion, the idea is that back in the day, people weren't doing their own thing because they were busy watching the Rebbe do his thing. And the Rebbe eventually said, I've been trying to get you to do your own thing while I'm doing my thing, and it's not working.
You're daring me to say,
No, I just said it for myself.
if I want to hear the Rebbe's Tkiyas,
No.
go out to a shliach in the boondocks.
Why shliach?
That's how I feel.
I'm saying it doesn't have to be a shliach.
I'm just telling you how I feel.
Okay, so that's what I was daring you to say.
I feel you want to really hear the Rebbe's Tkiyas, go to a shliach in the boondocks.
I feel like a shliach.
I have a heart.
I feel like a shliach is a bit of a cop-out.
I put my foot in my mouth by saying that I found an explanation for Gimmel Tammuz. So now
you didn't even say that. You said you found a comfort.
Yes, okay, you're right. You're right.
Right.
Now I put my foot in my mouth. Now I have to try to start making sense out of everything.
No.
Which I don't want to, and I can't. The reason I say shliach is, one thing is for sure. The Rebbe said, Ir gei doch mit eich. The Rebbe says, wherever a shliach goes, he is there with him.
Yeah, it's a bit of a cop-out. It's a bit of a cop-out.
I disagree.
Because it puts it on the shliach. It puts it on the shliach.
It has nothing to do with the personality of the shliach.
No. It puts it on the shliach being a shliach, and it puts it on the shlichus being a shlichus, and weiter it's the Rebbe. So it's like you're not willing to say that it's in me.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
I am good with that.
You're good with what?
I am good with, you want to call it putting it on the shliach? I do not feel
that's your comfort level,
worthy or able to make a claim for which I have no foundation. At least a shliach has the Rebbe with him.
I know, but that's a point. That's a point, according to what you're saying. I'm not.
You're looking for the tkiyas avodah b'kerech hatzmai that it should be on the same level.
No, look. I'm not looking for askamas to my teres over here. I'm not looking you to sign a book that I'm trying to write, and I'm not trying to squeeze you into my. I'm just saying, from what I'm hearing from you today, that's what comes out. But you're saying it's you're not comfortable with that yet.
Yeah, exactly. Very good.
Fair.
Very well put.
It's very fair. All right.
Very well put. I'm not comfortable with it yet.
Yeah, I understand. Look, the more I listen, the more to you and to others, I understand more. One of the nice things of having these conversations is that I, instead of proving myself right more, I hear other people more. Even if I came to prove myself,
I hear that too from you.
No, but I'm saying even if my kavanah is to prove myself right, I'm not claiming humility here, but even if my point is to put myself right, I have no choice but to listen to other people in the process, and then I have no choice but to go back home and listen to them again while I'm editing it, and then I have no choice but to hear what people say that they heard from this person. So at some point, it gets into my ears, it gets into my head, and I also like to listen to people. So I end up hearing these things, and so I understand that position better.
You know what? I'll give you a tidbit.
Okay.
This year, in preparation for Rosh Hashana, I belong to a group where we did divide all the Maimorim. Before Yom the Pagre.
All the Mamorim of...
So we learned all the Maimorim of Chayel. Now we're
but all the Mamorim of what?
the Rebbe. No. All the Maimorim.
Of the Rebbe.
All the Maimorim.
Of the Rebbe.
Yeah, of the Rebbe. So now in preparation for Rosh Hashana, so the Maimorim I picked, I only got to pick one Maimer v'hoya b'yom ha'hu, Tovshin Chof Ches.
Oh, look at Vav.
So I didn't get the Malukit. I got the second one. Someone else grabbed the Malukit
there's
before.
two of the Sindibra Maskil.
Actually three.
Of Sindibra Maskil.
Yes, there was Rosh Hashana, there was Shabbos Shuvah, and there was Simchas Torah. So
the Malukit Maimer is a very good
right,
Maimer.
that's the Rosh Hashana Maimer. And I got to learn the Shabbos Shuvah Maimer.
It was also 3-day Yom Tiv.
It was, yeah. It was a 3-day.
So it was a Hemshech of Rosh Hashana, kid.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And the Simchas Torah was also a Hemshech. So
the Maimer v'hoy b'yom ha'hu on Simchas Torah.
Yes. Yes. The Rebbe connected it with the Shofar Godel that came as a result of the 6-Day War.
In the Shlichus he connected it?
No,
or
in one of the Maimorim.
Ah.
He didn't say the 6-Day War, but he said the Shofar Godel that just happened.
Interesting.
And so I got the middle Maimer. But because I got the middle Maimer, and it's part of a Hemshech.
You learned all of them.
So I learned all of them. I'm on such a high from that Maimer. To me, nice when I am going to hear Shofar this Rosh Hashana, hopefully Sheikh comes and we hear it from the Rebbe again. But thinking of the levels of Shofar the Rebbe talks about, the Shofar Godel, the difference between the various Madregis and Shofaris, I don't know. I'm going to connect with that Maimer. When I'm going to hear Shofar, I'm going to hear what the Rebbe says in the Maimer.
It's a Geschmack Maimer.
So I'm giving you a little.
It's a very.
Ich geb dir noch a bissl.
It's a Geschmack Maimer. You're talking about Yitaka Miatzmai.
Miatzmai, that's right.
Yeah. Which is in a way the opposite, but not the opposite of what we're talking about.
I put it in context also because of what we experienced this year.
October
the
7th.
Same way that Rebbe says Shofar Godel for the 6-Day War, there's a certain Shofar Godel of this year after October 7th. So I'm connecting with that.
Beautiful.
That's my Avodah or my Hergeshim for this Rosh Hashana.
Yeah. Should learn that memory.
I'm going to Rosh Hashana with these memories.
Beautiful. All right. On that note, thank you very much. I don't know if everyone's going to listen to the end, but I should have mentioned at the beginning that in many ways your work on the radio is probably a precursor to this work on television, but also radio after that. No, or mainly
no, it was mainly
television. But talking, right?
Yeah, it was conversation, interviews.
Okay. So I should have asked you about that.
No, it's fine.
But at the
we're digitizing now.
At the very least, we owe you we have a cups here, a cable to Jewish life. It's still going on.
It's going on, not with the same energy as then, because television is not.
Right. So you used to have a weekly TV show.
Yes.
Where you would interview people.
Yes.
So you were the interviewer.
I was the interviewer.
All right. So I should.
No, it's fine. That's not what the show is about.
I should. Each step leads to the step after, right? So even though I never watched those shows, but the fact that there were people interviewing and having conversations, led, I'm sure, to someone else who led to someone else, which led to this. And so in that sense, I owe you a debt of gratitude. And,
I owe you a bigger debt of gratitude.
Say that,
You
okay,
put me
we're
in
even,
perspective.
even Steven. And how does it feel to be interviewed?
It's not the first time. I've been
fair.
already on
you said that.
interviews, but
So it's a bit different.
what can I tell you?
Yeah.
I joined the podcast world too.
Oh, you do podcasts too?
Hayem Yem.
Oh, right.
My Hayem Yem. I have a passion for Hayem Yem, and I wish.
Where can people find your Hayem Yem?
The English version you can hear on Chabad.org.
Chabad.org.
And it's also on all the platforms. And then I also have on Yiddish.
Where can they find that?
On YouTube.
On YouTube. And what's a passion of Hayem Yem Dafka?
Oh, you want the story?
Yes, why not?
You have time?
Why not? Why not?
It was during COVID. We have a chassid in the shul I daven. His name is Rabbi Yomin Malachowski. He has a passion for Hayem Yem because it cost him 6 weeks' salary to buy Hayem Yem in Russia.
Wow.
He has a big passion. And every day, every minyan he sees, he reads the Hayem Yem after davening.
How old is this fellow?
He should be in his good 80s, probably in the higher 80s. And during COVID, he didn't come back to shul when everybody started coming.
Because of his age.
He wasn't vaccinated, whatever.
Right.
He calls me up. I should take his place by the minyan. All right, big deal. So I'll read the Hayem Yem. Then I said, no, my gaiva. And I attribute it to my gaiva. I couldn't stand how people get up and they read the Hayem Yem. The reader doesn't know what he says, and the listener doesn't know what he says.
Right.
And I've been doing the Hayem Yem all my life, and I still don't know the Hayem Yem. So I said, we gotta do a better job. So I found from all this forum they have on the Hayem Yem, there's something called Hayem Yem Hamvur.
It's in English.
By a guy, Shmuel Raskin from Etzrol. It's in Hebrew. I started using it. It's an eye-opener. He goes to the source, and then... So I started coming to shul and reading it with the background. After a while, some guys who davened with my minyan changed their minyan, so they asked me, would you please record it and send it to me on WhatsApp? Okay, I'll do it for you. I started sending it to these guys on WhatsApp, and I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, I get a call from someone. You're doing the Hayem Yem, why don't you do a podcast? I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. First of all, how do you know about my Hayem Yem?
Right.
The fact is, it made its rounds. This guy set up a podcast for me. And the rest is history. It became a whole thing. And then people from Williamsburg reached out to me. You're doing it in English. Why don't you do it in Yiddish? I feel more comfortable in Yiddish. So I was very happy to have this opportunity. So now I have 2 podcasts, one in Yiddish and one in English. And when this chassid came back to shul and I wanted to hand it back to him, he said, no, you're continuing. That's it. That's my job. And that's how it happened. And what I discovered every day is Poshet. Now it makes sense. They say that the Rebbe's brother, when he saw the Hayem Yem, he said, I knew he was a genius, but I didn't know he was such a genius. When you learn a lot of this and you understand why the Frierdiker Rebbe said it's a palace with 383 chambers.
But what's a genius? He took things that people had. He took from sources.
He took not only there's so much depth and there's also you got to be careful. Sometimes which words did he take out from the source? It's true. The source gives you a lot of background. That's true. But not necessarily always would the source match up with the Rebbe's message.
I'm saying, where did you see the genius? In what he chose?
In what he chose and how he chose it and how he gives it out. And yeah, you have to go to the source. By going to the source, every little line...
But you're saying that you're seeing the genius in the diukim, in the changes, or you're
Everything.
seeing it in the selection?
In every
Everything.
angle you go to, you just walk away inspired. And I've been doing it already since COVID, so it's like I'm on my 4th or 5th round.
You're still doing it.
I'm still doing it. I still review it, and I still get
Find
excited, and I still...
Beautiful.
And I'm glad to hear from listeners that they too like it.
So people can find it on Chabad.org.
Chabad.org is the English, yeah.
Wonderful. Anyway, thank you again. This has been wonderful. We've gone for quite a while.
I hope so. I hope somebody will benefit from it.
First of all, I already benefited from it. So if somebody, then you're ready took care of that. Anyway, thank you again.
Should finish off wishing everybody
I'm wishing you
and we should hear the Shefer Godel.
Shefer Godel. Herren und der Herren.
Right.
All right. The music for this podcast comes from the album Repentance Doors by Oren Sor Nadav Vachar and is used with their permission.